Can we do that again? Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Veronica, would you do the roll call?
If I could, just one item of business. Yeah, we're going to do one item of business first. And that is to note for the record that this council meeting is being conducted pursuant to the Brown Act, Section 54953B, which is the what is referred to oftentimes as the traditional teleconferencing rules, which Councilmember Haskell is participating from the Langham Hotel, room 545, 250 Franklin Street in Boston, Massachusetts. Councilmember Haskell is participating by Zoom webinar. And I wanted to note for the record that in accordance with the Brown Act, Councilmember Haskell's location has been identified in the agenda for this meeting. And I'll also note for the record that we have a quorum of council members present here in person. So I just have a few items just to go through with Councilmember Haskell before we begin. Councilmember Haskell, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Great. And do you have a copy of the agenda for tonight's meeting?
I do.
Have you posted the agenda at the location where you are?
Yes.
Okay, and is your location reasonably accessible to the public such that any member of the public could participate in the teleconference from your location if he or she wished to do so?
Yes.
Great, and is there any member of the public there with you now?
There is not.
All right, great, thank you. And I'll ask now if any council members could speak up if they have any trouble hearing Councilmember Haskell. Don't see any concerns there. And we will now note for the record that all of the council members present have indicated that they can hear Councilmember Haskell clearly. And I will advise the mayor and the council that for tonight, all votes must be taken by roll call. And with that, mayor and clerk, you can proceed with the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Veronica, roll call.
Councilmember Walter.
Present.
Councilmember Haskell.
Here.
Councilmember Flynn.
Here.
Vice Mayor Huff.
Here.
Mayor Taylor.
Present.
We have a quorum.
How does this sound in the audience? Does it sound like we have a slight echo, or is it okay out there? Great. Okay, perfect. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the report out of closed session. Closed session was canceled, so there is no report out. There was no closed session. So with that, let me move on to number 4, which is presentations and proclamations. So the first one is for HIP Housing. And we have Laura Fanucci. Did I get it right? Fanucci. I knew it. Anyway, thank you. It was close. It was kind of close. She's the director of programs at HIP Housing. And she's here to present us with the housing calendars. So we've all got housing calendars, and give us an overview of the home sharing program.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council and town staff in the audience and those on Zoom. My name is Laura Fanucci from HIP Housing, here for 2 purposes tonight, for our calendar presentation and also an overview of the home sharing program. So the fun piece tonight is our calendar. This is our 2026 calendar. We have an annual calendar contest. We've been now for over 25 years. Where we ask kindergartners through 5th graders to draw a picture of their home and then to write a statement about what their home means to them. And we picked 14 winners this year. 13 are in the calendar, and 1 winner is part of our annual appeal for our donations. So we use this calendar as an outreach tool to educate the community about our affordable housing programs. And I just wanted to read the October quote because it's one of my favorites. It's by a 4th grader. And she says, "My home means more than a roof and walls. It means love and happiness to me. I drew a room full of books because I love reading. Outside there is a bunny that means fun and silliness. But most importantly, my family is in my home and I feel safe." So we see a lot of quotes from kids about how their home makes them feel safe and secure. It's a time to be with family and friends, and that it makes them feel warm inside. So we hope you enjoy the calendars during the year as a reminder of the great work that HIP Housing does in the community, and to also thank you for your support of our organization. So now I will go on to my home sharing presentation. So thank you, Darcy. And I'll just ping you when I want to move the slide. Okay. So the first slide had HIP Housing's mission statements. So we invest in human potential by improving the housing and lives of people in our community here in San Mateo County. We've been in the community now for over 50 years, and we serve all of San Mateo County. Okay, next slide. We have 4 housing programs. I'm going to talk about our home sharing program tonight, but I did want to mention our other programs. Our Housing Resource Hub is an opportunity for anybody who contacts our organization to receive housing resources on how they can apply for affordable housing. They can be added to a weekly e-blast that we create about affordable housing and community resources. And they can have access to a Google site that we've created that we update every 2 weeks about affordable housing waiting list openings. Our Housing Readiness Program is a program where we counsel low-income older adults on what they are eligible for housing here in our community. We actually help them apply to affordable housing, and we give scholarships to seniors who are exiting the shelter into permanent housing. Our self-sufficiency program is a program where we provide housing and wraparound services for a year to 5 years to families with children and transitional aged youth, where the adults are enrolled in school or a vocational program. And then lastly, our properties. HIP Housing also has a property owner and manager and developer. We own and manage over 500 units of affordable housing here in San Mateo County. We have a new construction project going on in the city of San Carlos right now in downtown Cherry Street that we hope to be finished in October of this year. It'll be 33 units, 100% affordable. Okay, next slide. So tonight's presentation is about our home sharing program. This was the first housing program that the agency launched back in 1979. It's a program where we interview home providers. They can be homeowners or renters, and they have either a room for rent in their home or an accessory dwelling unit. About 60% of our home providers are older adults. They may live alone, they may need extra income, or they may need somebody to live in the home so that they can feel more safe and secure. And then we help to match them with the home seeker, who's usually a single person, a couple, or a single parent that has a connection to our community. We receive a variety of funding for this program from all the cities here in San Mateo County and through grants and fundraising efforts. And we're also listed in all 21 housing elements here in San Mateo County as a way to increase affordable housing by doing home sharing. We're also helping communities that rely a lot on the production of ADUs to meet their affordable housing goals. So we have some partnerships with the town of Atherton and Hillsborough to do enhanced outreach efforts in the community, in and around the community, to encourage homeowners who have accessory dwelling units to register with HIP Housing's home sharing program. We have one match in Hillsborough that's been going on now for 5 years, and it's with a couple that had an ADU. They didn't need the income, but they wanted to really have somebody on the property because they traveled a lot. And they also wanted to help a member of the community. They've been matched with a local teacher who works in Hillsborough, and she was in jeopardy of losing her housing because of a significant rent increase. And so they rent her the ADU at a very reasonable rate, and she's been able to stay as a teacher in the community now for the past 5 years. So it's really a great match. And we have 2 matches in Atherton. One is with a senior who's matched with another senior. And then we have an empty nester who's matched with a senior. So we have those great relationships with Atherton and Hillsborough, and we're hoping to do the same here in Portola Valley. Our program is also nationally recognized. So we do a lot of technical assistance to other organizations that want to launch programs in their community. In California, we have the largest number of home sharing programs in the US, and we've had our hand in helping a lot of them develop their programs. Okay, next slide. So the way that the home sharing program works is folks contact our organization. We do an initial screening with them to determine if they're eligible for the home sharing program. They're scheduled in an interview with one of our home sharing staff, and we do that either over Zoom or in our office in San Mateo, or we do a home visit with all of our home providers. And the interview gives us a chance to get to know them and what they're looking for. Part of our screening is that we ask clients for proof of their ID. We ask for income verification from our home seekers. We ask clients for the names and phone numbers of 3 character references. We do a local San Mateo County background search and a national sex offender database check, and we do that on all of our applicants. Each applicant is assigned to one of our home sharing staff, and they keep in contact with their clients weekly to provide information on potential housemate leads. And we provide our clients with resources on how they can interview and screen each other. Our role is to then help them do a living together agreement and then provide ongoing follow-up support for the duration of their home sharing match. All of our agreements are structured on a month-to-month basis, but on average, our home sharing matches last 5.5 years. And so it's really an effective solution for our community members to keep folks housed here in our community and keeping their housing costs more affordable. Okay, next slide. This slide just shows examples of some of the clients who utilize our home sharing program. A lot of different professions that we find here in our community. About 11% of our clients are affiliated with school districts. So they're school district personnel, teachers, teachers' aides, tutors, or those who work for after-school programs. So we do see a lot of folks that are in the school district industry that are really looking for affordable ways to keep housing costs low, as that example for the tenant that's matched with the family in Hillsborough. But we also have a lot of seniors who are looking for housing. So we have about 23% of our home seekers are older adults that may be experiencing housing insecurity for the first time. They might have been in a very stable housing situation for a long time, and then something happens, and now they're plunged into looking for a new affordable housing. And so they often use our program as a resource. Okay, next slide. This shows some of the benefits for both our home seekers, our home providers, and so for our home seekers, we really are trying to keep folks more local here. We do have a statistic that shows here in the county, like 66% of the people who work here in the county commute from out of the area, and we want to be able to keep them more local and are invested in our community. Our home sharing program keeps our home seekers' housing costs at an affordable level of 30% of their income, which is considered sort of a standard for keeping affordable housing costs. And then for our home providers, and not only, we have a lot of older adults that utilize the program that have empty space in their home, and they want to put that space to good use. Whether they need the income or not, a lot of our older adults are living alone, and they feel more secure about having somebody in the home. And we often see a lot of older adults whose families may live out of the area, and having somebody who's in the home makes the whole family feel more safe and secure. We also find that our home providers are sometimes spending more than 50% of their income on their housing costs before they find a house they need to move in. So in a way, it also helps to keep their housing costs much lower. And then, of course, with our community, it's home sharing is a much less expensive option than building new. We are putting extra space to good use by putting those empty rooms, out there in the community for those who might need them. And last slide. And this is my contact information. Our website is hiphousing.org. This is my direct phone number for folks that want to contact our organization. Our phone number to our general mailbox is 650-348-6660. And again, our website is hiphousing.org. And we're very appreciative for the town's support of our programs. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your calendars. Are there any questions from the council?
Well, it's just one. Thank you again for the presentation. Does your program only work with single individuals, or does it help with families at all? Or
so in the home sharing program, we work with families. The home seekers are usually a family size of 1 or 2 persons. So if it's a larger size family, they may qualify for our self-sufficiency program, or we may connect them to our properties, because our waiting list for our properties is always open. And so we encourage folks to get onto our waiting list by going to our website to do that.
a follow-up question on that. Are your properties also listed with the transportation agency doorway, the doorway?
So for doorway, we can't, we've had these conversations about posting like our rooms for rent on doorway, but they're not quite set up for that yet. We use doorway replaced SMC Housing Search, which was the county's portal, and we were always listed on there. So we've had those conversations with the doorway folks, but the room rental piece of it is not quite fleshed out yet.
Mary, do you have any questions?
No, thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Ellen?
Hi, thank you. I love hip housing. I love what you guys do. So I'm wondering about a conversation and a program possibility that, and whether you've had the conversation.
Mhm.
We have lots of staff, I know, that drive a long ways. And so I've always wondered if you ever have a commuter type program where like somewhere
Mhm.
that they don't qualify necessarily as for under AMI guidelines
Mhm.
and thresholds, but somewhere that, you know, someone could be for,
Mhm.
3 or 4 nights a week kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Mhm.
and it's also, I know like on the coast, they have lots of staff driving in, lots of people coming in from long ways. So that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I'm just wondering if you've ever thought about trying to do some sort of program like that.
Yeah, so for the home sharing program, I should clarify that we don't have like an income level for that program. So a maximum income level. So any home seeker who earns at least $1,800 a month can participate. And if they have a much higher income than that, that's, we will still work with them. So we do have home providers in the home sharing program that sometimes want a commuter and they prefer that commuter. So we have made some matches that way. So we would just encourage folks to contact our program and we would interview them for the program, keep them in our system and let them know if there's anything available like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, next up, we have a presentation by UPC. So we're going to talk about the AM radio tonight. This has been a fabulous project that's been going on for a long time and look forward to hearing some more of the details. So we have Craig Hebert and we have Ray Rothrock presenting. Welcome to you both.
Okay, welcome. Ray is going to drive the slides and I'll follow along, but I'll do the major or large portion of the presentation. I'm probably going to follow along on my computer, so if I lose eye contact with you, that's because I'm trying to get us through this. So we have a fairly brief and breezy presentation that's more or less an update on the AM 1680 radio. And before I start, I want to thank the town council for giving us time to give the presentation and give you an update. So with that being said, this is going to be pretty breezy, I think. So let's go ahead and start. So as you know, and already introduced, I'm Craig Hebert. I'm the new UPC chair. We've been a member since 2023, and Ray is a member since 1999. So I wanted to start with what's the value of the AM radio. So as most of you know, in emergency communications are essential, and the communication that we have and we take for granted may not be available or disrupted during an emergency, such as cell towers and even landlines, internet, and so forth. And AM radio has proven to be a good backup communication route in the event of disruptions in the more traditional, usual kind of things. So another way, by the way, to look at AM radio is it's a megaphone when all other communications fail. So what is our con radio AM 1680? So it's been in operation since 2013. It does have a call sign of WRML 5 3 transmits 10 watts on 1680 kilohertz in its AM. It is licensed by the FCC. That's Part 90. It's a Traveler's Information Station, or TIS, so it falls under that category. The town manager is the designated responsible person. The license expires in 2031. That's about 5 years from now. The radio is managed by Portola Valley EPC team. And what does it do? How does it operate? It plays messages 24/7, 365. It's also capable of doing live broadcasts from town hall. And the messages can be managed either remotely or on site. We're creating a library, want to create a library of pre-recorded messages. We haven't gotten there yet, but it's forthcoming. Actually, the hardware is already ordered and is on the way. So I'd like to hand it over to Ray, who will give a brief overview of the basic.
Thank you, and good to see everybody tonight. This diagram is just a simple cartoon diagram of our AM system. Just for background, 2013, we applied for a grant. Oh, I should say the Woodside Fire Department applied for a grant, and we didn't pay anything for all this. Was very nicely delivered from a company in Michigan. That black box in the middle is a portable Pelican case with the AM radio in it, the audio system, and the antenna control and management system. It can be rolled out if town hall were to become unoccupiable. We can roll it out, and we have a portable antenna and put it up in the parking lot or go to a high hill somewhere. That we've done that several times just for the sake of trying and making sure that all the components work. So the radio transmits two things. One, it goes out through a normal antenna. The antenna is located on the northwest side of Town Hall. You can see it there sort of behind the trees. And it transmits like any other radio station on AM 1680. In fact, it can be received by a normal radio, like the one I have here. This is our favorite DJ, Selena Brown of the Woodside Fire Protection District. And that's one method of receiving it. The other is in your car. Now, it turns out all these electric cars are very noisy for radio of any kind. The Tesla actually has, for example, has the AM in it, but you have to hack the car to get the AM to work. But most cars, most normal cars, not EVs, have an AM receiver. So worst comes to worst, you can go out to your car and listen to it. The other method we have, the other channel, is through the internet. On the town emergency preparedness page on the town website is a QR code. And if you click on that QR code, so if we had an emergency tonight, our town council member in Boston could listen to what's going on. The point is, we have multiple channels to hear the AM radio, and we can remotely control it. We can remotely upload messages. We can change the messages. And so finally, I just say, if all else goes bad, the radio software gets out of whack, and it has on occasion, we have the ability to remotely turn it off, power it off, and restart it. That happens to be a requirement of the FCC license. So anyway, it's a real simple package. It works very well. It took us a while to get it on the internet because of town land IT issues, but we're all good, and it's functioning perfectly. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Ray. So I wanted to talk a little bit about next steps. So these are in 4 categories. There's a protocol that we'd like to create, and that kind of defines, who changes the messages, when do they get changed, and operations. So who and how would change those messages would be covered in operations. Performance, we're looking at another thing there. There's more details in the next slide. And then promotion is, of course, the 4th thing. So going into a little bit more detail, the protocols, so it's worthwhile to really establish a protocol for how to manage the messages on AM 1680. For instance, as I already said, who manages these messages, who changes them, the town manager, for instance. There's several examples here, EPC members as designated by the town manager or the mayor, the Woodside Fire Protection District, sheriff, so forth. And then just when would these messages be changed? Clearly emergencies, but also significant weather events like the ones that we had just a few weeks ago, and town events such as Zots to Tots. The bottom line here is in bold at the bottom. So EPC has drafted a protocol that's ready for review. So we'd like to put that in the hands of the folks who should probably review the protocol and give us a go-ahead, that it's good to go and so forth, so that the messages can be controlled properly. The next one is operations. So, how does all of this stuff happen? So what we're thinking is to train personnel on the recording and loading of messages. It's not exactly trivial, so we want to have people who know what they're doing, get trained up on how to do it. And what we're thinking is the people who would do that would be identified by the EPC team, of course, bounced off of the town manager and town council and so forth. We're looking at potentially members of EPC and BPTS committee, town manager, Woodside Fire Protection, sheriff, and so forth. We expect that we'll get this stuff done around the end of the year of 2026. There's quite a bit of work to be done there. The next steps comes under the heading of performance. What we want to do here is we talked about this creating a library of pre-recorded messages. So there's a lot of things that can occur that we know that they're going to occur. It's not necessarily an emergency, but it's something like Zots to Tots, a school opening that would increase traffic, for instance, and cause problems, and weather events. So we can get a heads up about those events from the national. Things of that nature, things that you can record beforehand. Create a library and a stack of these messages that then can be loaded easily and can be loaded remotely even and on site, so that we can use the radio to its fullest potential. And we're looking at leading that effort and give the town council an update once we get the library loaded and stacked and everything. We'd like to give you a demo about how that works. We expect that to be able to complete that Q3 2026. The last step is promotion. So the idea here is that you have this incredible resource, but maybe not a lot of people know about it. And of course, this is kind of a chicken and egg thing. You don't want to create something that nobody knows about. And by the same token, you want to promote it without having the potential there or the functionality of it. In 2025, we did put up road signs on the entryways to Portola Valley. There's 3 signs, 3 entry points. I want to thank the town manager for getting that done. That was great. That took a little bit of work. And we also got some coaching from town council about how to get these things moving. So the other thing that we're looking at, more or less internally, it needs to be kind of fleshed out a little bit more, is EPC 2026 initiatives. What would we be doing to promote the AM 1680? Perhaps a town manager would be doing newsletters or including it in her newsletters, periodic reminders on people forum. And then we're thinking about marketing to the local citizenry. These things haven't really been fleshed out yet. We kind of think that this is an ongoing thing throughout 2026. So I'd like to summarize, AM 1680, the TIS radio. So it's ready for use. It's being used right now. It's transmitting 24/7, 365. These messages go out. The messages are really too easy to manage, and that's what that library is about as well. It's fully supported by the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and it's proven to be pretty reliable and durable during the last weather storms, for instance. It's up and running just fine. To close, I want to acknowledge the Emergency Preparedness Committee. I think we have an incredible depth and breadth of experiences and skills in the committee. It's really quite an honor to be the chair of that committee. I also want to recognize Craig Taylor as the liaison for EPC. You've been tremendously helpful. And in the past, so has Helen Walter as a council liaison. With that being said, are there any questions or comments?
So thank you. This is a great resource for the town. It was great when we put in, but obviously, it needs to be maintained, and you guys have done a fabulous job of just pushing through any number of small and large problems to get this thing to where it is. So thanks to the whole team for doing this. Are there any questions from the council members? Why don't I start with Helen this time?
So more of a comment. So when I started as a liaison, I didn't really know what you guys were doing with the radio. And I can remember, Ray, when you went first and were like, I got it going again, like it was down. And it's just been such knowing that you guys have helped to prepare for an emergency for the town and making sure, pushing to get it set up and making sure that it's available. So it's just a note of gratitude. Thank you for what you guys are doing. And I appreciate that.
Thank you, Helen. Rebecca?
Yeah, I want to thank all the members of the committee. We really using your talents and your expertise to help the town. It's vitally important. A couple quick questions. Where does the actual machine live? Is it in the town hall?
Yeah, it's in the closet off the main conference room.
And then you said you could just wheel it out. Does it have some type of electrical backup that it can?
Yeah, we have a portable battery system that we can take with it and plug it in.
I see. And then in terms of the messages, has the EPC worked at all with the Emergency Services Council? Because they did a very large, they hired a consultant to come in and work on messaging for the messages that go out on the phone. So I'm just wondering if you've made a use of that resource, because they did go through a very intensive training on what works for a message, what doesn't scare people, what gets people to actually get the right information and to do what they need to be doing during an emergency. So it might be worthwhile to talk to the director of the Emergency Services Council. Have you linked into that group?
We'll do that. The message that's on there now is a very general message about if you're a visitor passing through. And we created it basically from the scripts that the vendor of the system, who's got 10,000 of these radios across America. So that's where we started. And we've used the Woodside Fire Protection District to help us a lot with that. And they're actually the ones that have changed the messages when something's come up mostly. So we don't say this, don't say that to them. They put out there what they want. And they typically follow the SNC alert kind of. But we'll check that research. I was not aware.
Thank you, Rebecca. Mary?
Well, as the Luddite on the team, I thought I would just raise the possibility that we elders are going to need a fair amount of coaching if you want us to even to tune in. I know in the past when we've had emergencies, there's been a sense of radio silence in the community. No sirens go off. Nobody tells you where to go. Last time I put on my backpack and went door to door and nobody answered because we were all shut down. So I'm just wondering if there's a way that you can use some of our outreach groups like Firewise, like whatever our neighborhoods are ready groups to actually make this a reality. I know with my, this is maybe not a question, but that's an ask, I guess. With our neighborhood, it's hard to get people together, even when you're asking neighbors to come together. But we did a whole thing about handheld radios, and of course, nothing never happened, and we never kind of pulled it together. So I just really worry about the rollout.
Thing to worry about. Couple of facts. I put up here a slide we had as a backup slide. In the last 3-4 years, an organization called WPV CERT has come up. It's a Community Emergency Response Team. It's a national organization. Our WPV CERT operates those little handheld radios, and we have built out quite a remarkable repeater system so that if you get on your radio, there'll probably be somebody there. And we work close with the AM radio messages, the CERT activity, work with that. I'll also say there's an amateur radio group in town. Oh, and back on CERT, there's about 60 members, which is a lot. These people are trained in first aid, they're trained in radio, they're trained in food, they're trained in all the things that you need. This did not exist until that one. It's like, actually, two of the trailers fit over here at the sheriff's, and there's one on Woodside. And this works, and it's under the auspices for Woodside Fire Protection. So everybody, we meet 4 times a year as a big group, fire district, the CERT, amateurs, and AM radio people. So we're all in cahoots on that, and it matters. I'll just say, Portola Valley and Woodside, we're a pretty lucky place here in the Central Valley. Our per capita of trained radio people is 4 times the national average. That's just because we're in the Central Valley. So there's a lot of people that have put their toe in and had some interest in it. So we keep recruiting these. And the other thing is we have also, if in a big earthquake or a big fire, if our repeaters all go down and things and AM radios all down, we've actually got we have a portable radio system that we can put anywhere in town and do everything remotely and separately. So we've tried to be, first of all, integrated across all the other communication services, also to be reliable and capable should we have a real serious emergency. We will all worry about fire. Darcy's worried about water. She gave us that talk at the last EPC. But at the end of the day, we're all just worried about having information. That's what we That's a great question. I got to use my backers. We did the education.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And thank you, Ray, for giving people a little insight into the full array of communications, because it's quite extensive. So I had a couple of quick questions. Can we go back to the protocol slide?
Hey, Craig.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judith. My apologies. Excuse me.
Are you here?
No worries. I'm just here
she
on the
is here,
wall.
and I've left her out like up until this evening. It's like, so Judith, please. Thank you for interrupting.
Yeah, no worries. It's easy to do. And I just want to congratulate these guys on the fortitude and the recognition of the importance of our safety-related communications. Like Mary, I'm not going to pretend to understand the details, but I do understand the contribution of people in the community just taking something on and moving it forward. So just want to express my thank you sincerely. That's all.
Thank you, Judith, and thank you for reminding me you're still there. Okay, so just on the protocols, I mean, I think the obvious person to review this stuff is the emergency manager, which is the town manager, since they're responsible for this. I did wonder, when you guys think about this, it seems like the emergency manager should be responsible for who can change the message. They can delegate that, but when I read this, it wasn't completely clear to me after the first 2 whether the other people could just jump on and change it, or whether they check in with the emergency manager and then go forward. Just so we don't end up with one person puts a message on and then somebody else through the internet, programs a new message. That seems like that could be, unexpected chaos. So as you guys go through this, you might think about sort of who has the authority and then how they delegate that authority.
After the protocol, we got
Is that okay?
only Darcy can say change it.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I just couldn't tell from the slide, but that's perfect.
The people we think will.
Yes, and that's 100%. And it totally makes sense to delegate to Woodside Fire when it's something that they're going to update on a regular basis. So no, I think this is the right list. I just wanted to make sure we had the delegation. So that's perfect. The other thing I was thinking of, as you guys are looking for pre-canned messages are red flag days. You know, because that's something that, you know, it can be a preset message. We don't need it to be, you know, recorded, but putting it up there so everybody knows about it would be great. And the other is no burn days we might think about, you know, when you're not allowed to have fireplace fires and stuff. And I don't know if that's in the TIS, but, you know, technically, you know, because there's a few of these things, it's hard to sometimes know where to look. And if 1680 can be that information source where people could say, okay, I know that I want to start up my fireplace, I can check and see if there's anything on here. That might be a good resource as well. So, but anyway, this is great. And both to you guys for the presentation, thank you. And for the rest of the EPC members that are here, Chris and Dale, you know, you guys have all been at this for a long time, and thank you all very much. And you're welcome to hang around the rest of the council meeting, but, you know, I would recommend that you exit.
Thank you. I have to record some messages.
Yeah, exactly. All right, with that, I'd like to go on to the next agenda item, which is the town manager report. Darcy?
I don't know that I can match that, but I do have some very exciting news. So, thanks to everyone who made the Wildlife Day a success. Hope many of you attended and saw the exciting raptors. This is a new event brought to us by the Nature and Science Committee to bring awareness to the town's first ever Wildlife Protection Month, which, as you know, is dedicated to the areas of wildlife vulnerability, identifying opportunities for safe crossings, and strengthening the understanding of how humans and wildlife can coexist in harmony within our shared environment. That wasn't the exciting news. The exciting news, though, was yesterday, there was a finance committee meeting that was not like most finance committee meetings. The finance director, Tony McFarland, in the back of the classroom, presented the interim financial statements for fiscal year 22-23 and the current fiscal year mid-year budget update. But as you know, he's been plugging away. This is the second audit he got through, and that led him to make corrections and adjustments, which normally wouldn't be that exciting, but this is stuff the finance staff has been working on over the last 4 fiscal years. And because of that, the beginning fiscal year 25-26 general fund reserve balance increased from 2.2 million to 2.9 million. So that's $700,000. That's our reserve fund. So as wise Tony said, this extends the runway, so to speak, but it's still not long enough for a safe landing. And in other good news, our last fiscal year, so fiscal year 24-25, ended with a small surplus, $80,000, but that's still very admirable. And as you know, this was not easy to do. So you're all to thank for your hard work on that. Our current fiscal year also brings good news. Our revenue is up 1.8% over the prior year. I think, you know, we're usually conservative with revenue estimates. But more importantly, we've again tightened the belts. Our expenses are down 6.1% under the prior year, and our expenses, especially on consultants, have shrunk dramatically. And as Tony said, this is our first ever apple to apple comparison, if you will, because some of the accruals were, again, finally adjusted out because of the truing up of the fiscal year. So I just want to take a moment to recognize what a major accomplishment this is for the town. And if you haven't watched the finance committee meeting or you haven't looked at the slides, which are online, I encourage you to do so. And this will lead up into a busy finance before the council in February. You'll have the mid-year budget at the next meeting and then those audits at the end of February. But there's a great presentation online with all the details. So I just, again, want to thank Tony because he's mostly single-handed did all this heavy lifting. And so it's a huge accomplishment. We still have a lot of work ahead to achieve long-term stability, but I can't stress enough what a key milestone this is for us to get a correct financial picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Yeah, it's very reassuring that we're starting to get our financial house in order and, very much it's due to Tony's efforts. So again, Tony, let me add my thank you to that as well. Are there any questions on the town manager report?
There are not, but you do have a hand raised online.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Any on the council first? No, no? Okay, great. Okay, so we have Valerie Baldwin. Valerie, go ahead. And welcome. Need to unmute.
Okay, yeah, this is Valerie. I understand that Stanford has applied for additional permits for the Stanford Wedge development. On their initial submission for development, I walked the property examining all the trees that were slated for removal and submitted comments about those trees. I hear that Stanford has now applied for additional tree removal beyond the 177 trees already approved by the council. And I would suggest that they be examined for the necessity for their removal by somebody on the staff and the planning commission. One particular tree we're hoping to save was what the locals call the mother tree. It sits in the middle of one of the paddocks. It's a valley oak over 400 years old and would end up in the middle of the new complex. We were hoping it could be saved. So please be sure that this is possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Are there any other comments on the town manager report? And we're sort of bleeding over into oral communications. So does anyone have any oral communications? There's no one in the schoolhouse. I see no one online. So tonight, Helen talked to me prior to the meeting. She would like to make a personal statement. So this isn't on behalf of the council, but this is Helen's personal statement. And she also asked if she could go a little over the 3 minutes. So unless there's any objection among the council, I would like to, let Helen read her full statement. So are we good with that? Yep. Okay, Helen, you're up.
Good evening. First of all views are my own. I'm coming in under public comment and not as a representative at the moment. But I did want to make a statement on what we are seeing nationally, and particularly in Minnesota. Locally, our government cannot do much on what we are seeing in other places. I talked to our mayor and our staff, and without an agenda item, we can't talk about it much. However, as yesterday was Holocaust Remembrance Days, and the stories of that time are dying as the last survivors are quite aged at this point, I wanted to speak about what I am seeing. Please don't think I am saying this is Nazi Germany, but the stories from Nazi Germany time remind us that individual acts of violence that are considered separate, isolated events can become something more evolved and systemic and in an insidious way. For example, in recent years, we are seeing various acts of violence against electeds where people have tried to assassinate Gabby Giffords, President Trump, and just yesterday, Congresswoman Omar was sprayed. Locally, some of you may not know this, but locally, our local state reps deal with death threats on a semi-regular basis. While people might not agree on various stances, governments can easily slide into authoritarianism if voices are silenced. That said, when a government isn't transparent with its citizens and when it uses the media to promote false narratives, people don't know what to believe. I know that due to the technology and social media platforms, the narratives we all watch separately are different. Each of us gets our own feed. So please look at your sources, be media savvy, use common sense, and turn on different outlets. More importantly, I encourage our community to remain civil and peaceful, as this is our source of moral authority. We cannot be quiet when our government doesn't represent us. Protest, speak up, call your representatives. Demand more from your elected officials, including me. In closing, my heart goes out to the people of Minnesota and the families of those killed by ICE. I want this community to come together to hear your thoughts on how we can accelerate collective action to bring positive momentum. Together, we are stronger, and together we can find solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I see another hand raised. Dave Cardinal. Dave, this is part of oral communications.
Yes, I want to mostly echo what Helen said. We have an increasing number of relatives, including our kids in Minneapolis, and they're scared to death for good reasons. And it just makes me put into perspective all the things we quibble about in our community, which seem so small compared to armed agents busting down doors and kidnapping people or murdering them in some cases. So whatever we can do to think of that and how to make sure that can't happen again or stops happening is so much bigger than so many of the things that we have on our plate that I think it does us well to remember that that may be the future of our country, whether if we can deal with it and fix it or not, is going to be life changing for all of us. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. All right, I don't see any other hands online. There's no hands in the schoolhouse, so I'm going to close this item and move on to this consent agenda. Are there any public comments on the consent agenda? MJ Lee, go ahead. You're muted. You were unmuted for a minute. Still muted. There you
How
go.
about now?
That's it.
Thank you. Oh, that's too bad my face looks like that.
You look excited.
Yeah. That's my COVID picture when my husband cut my hair and it was all lopsided. Anyway, so thank you to the mayor and the town council for your hard work and for the support you all have given towards wildfire preparedness over the past 5 years that I have been on the WPC. On your consent agenda today, the WPC has an amended charter and a new member appointment. So I just want to take this chance to say that our big goal this year is to double Firewise participation from the current 50% of Portola Valley homes to 100%. This idea was actually spawned by council members, and we embraced it because active Firewise awareness and participation across the entire town will reduce wildfire risk and improve insurance availability. But it's a big job. So we are increasing the WPC from 5 to 7 members, adding Patty Dews to our team, and hopefully 2 more people. And the council support, in addition, will help us achieve our goals. So I just wanted to thank you again for all the assistance and expertise you continue to give the Wildfire Preparedness Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, MJ. Are there any other public comments on the consent agenda? Don't see any online, so I'm going to close public comment. Are there any consent agenda items that a council member would like to pull?
So there's 2 small typos, so I don't know if we really need to pull them for that.
No, I think as long as they're small typos, you can just make those corrections.
Okay, is that correct?
Yes, you can just identify which item it is.
Oh, okay. Right now, instead of pulling.
But I would suggest maybe the mayor ask if there's anyone who wants to pull an item, and then once you're ready to go forward with the consent agenda, go ahead and identify those typos.
So is there any item, Mary, do you have one you want to pull?
Yeah, I want to pull let's see, what number is it? See if I can do that.
Or would it maybe just tell me?
It's just the rosters, yeah. E.
E.
All right, so we're going to pull E. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll pull 7E.
I make a motion.
Well, hang on,
Oh,
whoa. Helen, do you have any?
Actually, I would like to pull 7F.
Okay, we'll pull 7F. Judith? I didn't forget you this time.
Yeah, thank you, but I'm good with nothing to pull for me.
Okay, great. So now I would accept a motion for 7A through D and G. Is that, yeah, because you want to pull F, right?
I make a motion to approve those with the correction in the spelling of my name in the regular meeting minutes.
So moved or seconded.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. We have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Walter,
Aye.
Councilmember Haskell,
Aye.
Councilmember Flynn,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hefty,
Aye.
Mayor Taylor,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
Okay, so now let's go on to 7E. So Mary, this is the one you pulled.
Yeah, I just need clarification. I thought the Historic Resource Committee was a working group, not a managers committee, and that they're therefore not susceptible to these term limits. I guess that's my one question. And my other question is, have all of these chairs been contacted, and are they all convening their committees appropriately and using their scheduled time efficiently and appropriately?
Darcy, do you have any comments on that?
Yes. Hi, Darcy Smith, Town Manager. I had the same question about the Historic Resources Committee, but according to our website, they're still a committee. So I can research it, but I think from what I can tell, they're listed there. We may need to clean that up. I see Corey approaching. The other item, yes, most of them meet regularly. There are a few, I'll just say, committees that have stated that they don't regularly meet because they don't have content. And we do regularly reach out to them before we cancel their meetings.
If I may, through the
I
mayor.
see.
Yeah, go ahead, Corey.
Thank you.
To answer your question, Mary, you're correct. It is a group. It was just a typo that we left committee. So we'll change that to group. It was during the process where we split some of the Brown Act and the town manager committees. They were classified. So we'll make sure to make that edit.
Okay,
And of course, the other comment is, we do need to have, they need to be able to understand what that means, and we need to be able to understand what that means. And there needs to be a definition of what it means so that they can be fully functioned and funded, et cetera, as they need to be, or apply for money if they need. Thank you.
okay. All right, so I will entertain a motion for 7E.
I make a motion to approve 7E with the correction of Brooke Coffey's, the spelling of her name. She doesn't have an E after Brooke, for Brooke. Thanks.
Second.
Would you add the changing the
Oh,
committee to a working group?
and changing the historic resources to a working group.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Veronica, roll call, please.
Councilmember Walter,
Aye.
Councilmember Flynn,
Aye.
Councilmember Haskell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hefty,
Aye.
Mayor Taylor,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
Okay, moving on to 7F. Ellen, this was yours?
This was mine. Is MJ still online? I was concerned about, she is still there, great. I was concerned a little bit about two things. I know you've got a vacancy right now and we've got an applicant. But have you been able to recruit? Do you feel you'll be able to fill 7 seats? Hopefully Imogen is there.
I'm assuming we'll be able to. I mean, I have no proof.
Okay. That's fair. Okay. And my other concern is by having the meeting at 10 a.m. on a weekday, that your pool of applicants is limited to people who are available. And so I was wondering, obviously there are space constraints, but if you've ever thought about having the meeting start at 8 a.m. or in the evening kind of idea to increase the pool of people who might be available.
Yeah, we did not discuss starting the meeting earlier. Basically, what we were trying to accomplish before our meetings were at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. And it turned out that that was very difficult for for one of the members who has school-age children and for Fire Marshal Gugliacci to attend because she has school-age children. And it was making it very hard for us to achieve quorum or Kim Gugliacci would not be able to appear to give her Fire Marshal update. So I did a poll of all the members and the town liaisons, and it turned out that a morning meeting was best. I personally did not want to meet in the evenings, so that's the way it worked. I kind of hoped that by doing the meetings in the morning that we would have a better chance of getting younger people, who have school-age children and maybe they have a flexible job or maybe they're not working. So that was my thinking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to approve 7F.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Veronica, roll call, please.
Councilmember Walter,
Aye.
Councilmember Haskell,
Aye.
Councilmember Flynn,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hefty,
Aye.
Mayor Taylor,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
All right, that ends the consent agenda, item 7. Let's move on to the regular agenda. So we're going to start with receiving information, providing direction to town, the Portola Valley, got this half on the page, Commission and Advisory Committee Policy and Procedures Handbook. So Corey, you're going to present?
Yeah.
Great. Welcome. Please go ahead.
Give me one moment just to share my screen. Excellent. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Town Council. I have the opportunity to discuss the Town of Portola Valley's Commission and Advisory Committee Policies and Procedures Handbook. We're moving forward. I will refer to it as the handbook. So just for a bit of history, the recent handbook updates that town staff has brought forward to Town Council. One was from staff on May 2022. There was the addition of an extra committee, clarification on multiple committee participation, removal provisions, as well as the addition of a code of ethics. Then in 2023, the Town Council created a subcommittee which then created the Committee of Committees, which was each of our chairs to convene on items that were cross-committee effective. And they did create a working group to update the handbook. And Patty Dews is representing that working group, and she will be presenting right after me. So just a list of the different recommended revisions that I'll be going through today, along with the town attorney and the manager. It would be SB 707, which is a new bill that's moved forward, committee vacancies, information about the updated list of committees and definitions, so separating the Brown Act advisory committees as well as the town manager committees, the town committee calendar, AB 1234 related to ethics and harassment prevention training, and the definition of a quorum, which were all areas that the staff has either noted that we had issues with committees in the past in terms of being able to host meetings and have meetings For example, the quorum, as well as items that have come up legally that we have been pinged by the town attorney. So first, the Senate Bill 707, referred to as SB 707, which was a major overhaul to modernize the Brown Act and allow for further public meeting allowances related to just cause participation as well as teleconferencing flexibility. So related to SB 707, which this is more of a sneak peek of SB 707, there will be a later presentation from the town clerk, the town attorney, the town manager, and myself related to the specific local provisions that the town council would need to vote on and create a resolution for. However, this is just related to subsidiary bodies, which would just be committees. We had a recent confirmation from the town attorney, if I'm correct, that commissions are exempt as they are a decision-making body. Is that correct, Catherine?
Yes, that is correct.
So this, any teleconferencing flexibility would just apply to committees. And this would be an optional provision that would allow potential flexibility from the town council to have meetings remotely versus in person for the Brown Act. But we can discuss that more at a later date, but I wanted to give the town council the opportunity to be aware of that provision in SB 707, as well as the just cause participation, which would allow a more robust allowance for remote attendance. The next sections that we recommended edits for was committee vacancies. It's found on page 59 of the packet. I've added the notation here that we have changed how the notice of vacancies is just to allow for flexibility from staff, as we have been posting these notice of vacancies and requesting applications on the town website, as well as posting in the town newsletter. In prior, it was posted at Town Center, Nat Horse Triangle, and Village Square. However, to compete with the newer age electronic copies, we've had it on the website as well as the town newsletter. We are looking for direction again from the town council at the end. We've updated the list of committees. So we, instead of one long list of the committees, we've separated into our advisory Brown Act committees, which are advisory to the town council, and our town manager committees, which work directly with the town manager and do not have the same Brown Act requirements. This edit was purely administrative to ensure that the committee lists were separated in the. We've also made edits to the annual committee calendar, as we've attempted to align some of the different calendar months to combine with the fiscal year budget process, as finance has expressed that it would be a bit easier for them for certain items to be rearranged, such as the priority setting workshop, ensuring that we have committee members, or at least the representative from the committee at the town priority setting, and allowing for their annual reports to council to come a little bit earlier. As you can see, it moved from March to April, from January to March, to give the budget process and the finance director some time to make sure we allow for committee budgets or any other requests that they might have. Additionally, we did make the edit that the distribution of the adopted budget would not be in July. We would post the town budget on the website. Related to Assembly Bill 1234, or AB 1234, it is the ethics training, and also found on page 79. The law's clarified training requirements. So it has added the law applying to elected officials, members of boards and commissions, and other designated local officials, and mandates training within 1 year of assuming office and at least every 2 years thereafter. And we've finally we've trimmed down the definition of a quorum. We did receive feedback from some of our committees whose rosters weren't completely full and weren't able to have their meetings as they didn't have a quorum. So we were able to adjust, obviously with the permission of the town council, we would be able to adjust to have their quorums as the published agendas membership. So up in the top right corner, there's a list of the membership, ensuring they have a quorum of that membership. If they have vacancies, it wouldn't stop them from having a meeting. Glad you concur. This very long list is the additional topics that we would appreciate for council consideration. Addition of language to the application and selection process is something the town council can consider. We currently accept rolling applications. So throughout the year, committee members are able to apply year-round to join our committees. Alternatively, the town council could elect to identify a specific period of time. 1 month, if they're 6 months, whatever the preference for council would be, there could be open and closure dates. It's just an option. The appeals process for removed members, currently the mayor, after consultation with the council liaison, would have the authority to remove a member of a commission or committee member. The council may want to add additional clarification around that appeal process. Residency requirements. The handbook specifies that interested residents who within the geographic limits of the Portola Valley town can submit an application for positions as advisory committees. Case-by-case basis, you could waive the town residency requirement for the residents within their influence or within specifically the school district as another example. And the code of conduct, you may wish to update the code of conduct language in the handbook to refer to the code of ethics that was adopted by the town council in 2024. And then I do have Patty from the working group today. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you'd like to have Patty present as well, or if you'd like to go through the edit from staff and the town attorney first.
Why don't we have Patty present, and then we'll have sort of a full picture, and then we can talk about next steps.
Excellent. Give me 1 moment just to change the slides.
Welcome, Patty. So you have to turn the mic on. There you go.
Glad nobody else heard that. No committee chairs heard that, right? On the next page. Okay. After an informal poll, this is what I heard from people who asked if they had read the committee handbook. They said no. And their back hurts. Okay, next. As a finance person, I always like to start with a cartoon because we are funny. Okay. About 18 months ago in a galaxy long, far away, I was a member of a working group, which was a member of the Committee of Committees, which was beholden to the subcommittee of the town council to work on the committee handbook. The members of that committee were myself, Dana Breen, Judith Murphy, Jerry Welch, all volunteers. We were tasked with coming up with what I'm going to go over with today with you is kind of the high level objectives of how we approached that task. Some of the open questions that we came up with, hopefully get your feedback on that, determine next steps, how to work together primarily with staff, hopefully, and then the rollout and the time process. We did come up with some edits that we have submitted over the last 18-month period. We came up with a list of open questions, many of which Corey has addressed today. We decided, Darcy, Corey, and myself decided, rather than show you the working group edits, to take a step back because we really wanted to get town council feedback about the direction that we were taking, your approach on some of the questions, and then make sure we proceeded in the right way. The working group approach from a high level was obviously, the first one was to clarify, reorganize, update, just bring the committee handbook up to date, make it relevant, make it something readable. Again, make it more of a framework. If you read it today, there's a lot of detail in it. There's a lot of things that you go into that we believed you could keep at a higher level and then drill in if you absolutely needed to. We didn't want to make it a cure for insomnia. We really wanted to make it relevant. We thought that it might be possible to be able to reference kind of the lengthier, meatier documents, things like the general plan, code of conduct, the municipal code, things like that, as a reference, as opposed to incorporating within the document. That way we could make changes easier. Also makes it easier to read. And you don't have to reference those things unless you have to, right? And address a more common situation. There's a lot of examples of corner cases in the employee handbook. Let's make it relevant. Let's make it address most of the issues that we come up with on a day-to-day basis. Okay, next slide. These are just some examples I pulled out. Yeah. I mean, right now the handbook talks about the town council is the only entity that can grant franchises. Now, I don't think that's relevant to committees. I mean, I could be wrong, but again, it's just an example. There's an example of the Conservation Committee organizes town volunteers for removal of invasive. Now, Marianne, don't tell me that that's not important. I know it's important. Please, that's not what I'm saying. Just saying, as an example, is that something that we really want in the committee handbook? It's calling out a detail, whereas opposed to really talking about what are we asking in the employee. There's details about general plan, community code, excruciating detail. And Catherine, I know you'll hate this, but excruciating detail of laws of order. Who can make a motion? Who can second? Who can't second? This is I mean, does that really need to be, or can it be referenced? Grassroots policy, town organization, things that change and things that we could reference that we think would make it more readable and as a framework for us to really use and read.
Thank you. All right, so what I'd like to do here is any kind of clarifying questions for either Corey or Patty. We'll go around the room and then I'll open it up to public comment and then come back, have discussion, and maybe Corey can bring up her list of questions and Patty's questions and we can opine. So are there any questions, clarifying questions? Ellen? Don't forget. Don't forget your mic.
I'm reading this, I'm asking this question so that it's in the record about why it's not posted to the forum, the notice of vacancies.
So currently the communications team does not utilize the PV forum as we can't edit items once they're posted. And it's quite the process for us and we don't moderate the PV forum as well. So we don't currently that website.
Great, thank you. I was about the just cause for remote participation. Are those only the opportunities, like for instance, Judith is calling in without one of those options, for instance, right now. So I was curious about this.
And I can take this one. That is not the only option for attending remotely. That is one option under SB 707. Judith is participating remotely through what's referred to as the traditional teleconference rules, which have been on the books under the Brown Act for many years.
Great, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Judith, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I have a handful. So the purpose of limiting the notices or changing them to be as proposed, I assume that's not to say they can't post on the bulletin board at the town center. It's just these are the minimums that are required to effect a formal notice. Is that the intent?
Yes, that is the intention.
Okay. On the priority setting, I need a little more background on, was that concept in the handbook that the committees would be involved in the priority setting? If not, why is it in there now? And what was the thinking about that?
There was reference to a representative from each committee attending the priority setting, but it
Okay.
wasn't specific that it was the workshop. It just said a priority session.
Oh, okay. So it has to be, the idea is it would be involved in the process of advising on priorities, not necessarily attending the town council, because I think that has the potential to create some confusion about the town council's process. And that's what I was just getting confused by that. I can save that for discussion. The quorum, I don't quite get the language. Can you explain, like, it's as published at the top of the notice, but isn't what's at the top of the notice supposed to be the full membership? Like, how does this facilitate establishing a quorum?
Sure. So we have had issues in the past where the committee roster isn't fully updated. So therefore the committee felt that they couldn't have a quorum to meet as a member or two were still on a roster, but had not been removed from, or haven't been removed from the committee roster, but we're no longer published on the agenda, excuse me. So they were on an old roster, not
Okay.
posted, but they were on a agenda or vice versa. I'm sorry, I'm confusing myself reading the language. So they were posted on an old committee roster, but that person's name was not on the published agenda. So they were still able to meet. This person was just no longer affiliated with the committee, but they didn't have a quorum because they counted that individual who was no longer with the committee. When they decreased the full number of committee members minus the person who was still on the roster but removed themselves from the committee, they would have still been able to meet accurately. However, we also recognize that staff need to update committee rosters more often to ensure that we can continue to have quorums. This is to also facilitate meetings in case a committee roster isn't accurately updated, but the published agenda is, to allow committees to still meet. That was my long-winded way of saying that. I apologize.
Could I?
It's okay. I'm going to ask a example. So if I followed, the rosters are officially updated periodically by the town. That doesn't reflect in real time changes in actual committee membership when people come and go during the course of the year. There's a lag of some nature. Is that the crux of the problem?
Correct.
So the proposed fix, though, how do the notices on the published agenda or the membership on the published agenda, how is that set? Because, like, I think something's missing here, and we can get to that in discussion. But unless you lock down how that notice area works, then you haven't really increased clarity potentially. And maybe I'm missing something. So it's a question of, have you thought that through? And am I raising an issue that you've solved from your perspective?
So that's very helpful for us. Where we tend to have our most updated lists are these published agendas, as they are turned into us by the committee chairs, who tend to know before we do sometimes that a committee member has either left the committee and should no longer be on the roster. So sometimes we do find out that a committee member is no longer on a committee via the agenda versus a process. So this would allow us to follow the agenda that we're given by the chair to ensure that they can still meet if that list meets quorum, if we're unaware that a member is no longer a member of the committee but is still on the roster.
So I think the missing link then for me, and this is still me thinking out loud, it is a question, is do we need to add somewhere that the chair can only update that piece of the agenda to reflect actual resignations and additions? Like, without that piece, then the chair can just write in anybody. So did I miss it? That's my question.
You're correct. There is definitely a missing piece.
Okay.
We can make the edit.
Okay. I can bring that back then.
Hey, Judith, before you go on, I think Rebecca wanted to ask a follow-on.
I kind of wanted to answer Judith's question with some history on this. Historically, this was interpreted by our previous attorney, that as you look at each committee, they say how many committee members the full roster would be. But as we know, most committees have a vacancy, or not most, but several committees have a vacancy.
Mhm.
So in the past, it was interpreted that the vacancy was included as part of the committee numbers. So if a committee had 2 vacancies, like our new, the new size of the Wildfire Preparedness Committee, they would have to create a quorum that pretty much required every single person there, even though they don't have 2 extra members. So that was how it was interpreted
Okay.
before.
Mhm.
So I hope that provides
Yeah,
context.
that's helpful. I'll have,
And before you
Go
go
ahead.
on, I just wanted to follow on and then I'll let you keep going. Your question.
yeah,
So
sure.
Catherine, to you, I mean, is that the interpretation? If you have a committee authorized for 7 and you only have 5 members, are you saying a quorum is 4 or is a quorum 3? And is it the number of actual members that are on the committee, or is it the size that it's authorized for?
So this is one where the council can actually decide what the quorum is.
Okay.
In
Mhm.
contrast, for the city council, a quorum is 3 because under state law, for general law cities, you need to have 5 council members and quorums are defined under state law. For your advisory committees, and actually that would be the case for your commissions too. You would need to have 3, but this section only applies to committees. It does not apply to your commission. Your commissions need to have 3 for a quorum. But for the committees, the council has the discretion, the authority to determine what a quorum is. And so this proposed change, I think probably, when we're kind of getting discussion, but with I think the clarifications that Corey and Councilor Haskell were discussing would be in the authority of the council to determine.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, back to you, Judith. Sorry for the
Okay.
interruption. I just wanted
Oh, no
to sort
worries.
of keep the stuff together.
Yeah, I understand. Let me just double check. And then you're looking at, when we come back to discussion, I don't want to discuss it now, but you are looking for feedback on both the issues that you have listed, additional topics, and then some commentary on Patty's, like examples of things do we want to streamline? Is that the feedback you want us to have when we come back?
Yes.
Okay. Last question is, do we want the town council ethics to also apply? This was on one of the lists to the other bodies. I need to look at that, but are there any, if you looked at them, that are really focused more on the town council? Like, is there something there that we should be aware of when we're thinking about that is council specific?
I don't believe so. Catherine or Darcy, was there
Okay.
anything specific we were alluding to?
No, and I looked at the code of ethics before proposing that. And the way it is written is that they should be followed in theory by all volunteers in the town, including the committee members. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that was the spirit in which they were written in the language there.
And Judith, I can add a little more color to that. I mean, it was
Sure.
meant for the council, for staff, and for volunteers. So it was meant to be broadly, if we're public servants, volunteers or electeds,
Yeah.
that we would be reasonable and civil. Sort
Okay.
of the essential nature of it.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. I just didn't go back and check the language. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary?
Start, maybe with the question of the history of the committee and commission's handbook. I remember being chairman of the Trails Committee when it came out and going, where did this come from? And why do I have to do this? And really, you want me to read it? And I'm just interested to understand. I wasn't in a position to ask that question, despite my disbelief. But if you could help me now understand why we came up with quite such a cumbersome document and so unreadable, and who created it, and is it from some kind of boilerplate that we have to do these things?
I would love to be able to answer that with the knowledge. I know there is a forward from Bill Lane, so I'm sure it was a spirited effort from a few members of our volunteer community. There is certain language that is required to be in there related to harassment training and other Brown Act and Rosenberg's Rules of Order. However, I can't give too much detail in terms of what they were thinking.
Okay. Put that in the unknown situation, and then and not to get too much into the weeds, but I did have to note that I'm an inveterate invasive plant remover, and I will get specific authorization from the Conservation Committee, but I have never thought that was necessary or even indicated.
Just don't want it in the hand.
Right. Please, can we, yes, I would agree. I mean, that kind of detail, maybe it came out of a conflict. Are you aware of it coming out of a conflict? But the less is more, I would tend to agree with. And then the other question that's been asked, and that I'm sure it's familiar to you, which is, should there be a separate book for the commissions as opposed to the committees? And what's the answer to that, and how is that going to play out?
So that would be at the discretion of the town council if they would like to have a separate committee a commission document.
Okay, then I have to ask what we're doing right now. Are we authorizing anything, or are we just discussing this?
We're just discussing and
Okay.
we're requesting direction so we can bring back a better document for you with any edits, questions, discussion that comes out of today. We would be able to bring back to you an update. So nothing is being approved or authorized, adopted tonight.
Well, maybe I should just ask the flip side of that. In your opinion, the two committee, do we feel that the committees should be in the same document, or should they be treated separately? Would it be more clarifying? Would it be helpful? Would it be more empowering? Would it be less blurry how we're authorizing people?
I think to your point of the commission seemingly having different requirements than some of our committees. Some of our committees we have town manager committees, which might or might not, we're still trying to figure that out from our terms in the legal standpoint, if town manager committees would fall under this handbook. So to your point, I think the Brown Act committees and commissions could be grouped in one handbook, but the town manager committees might need a different set of unofficial rules related to the town manager. But I understand what you're saying about the committee requirements being different from the committee requirements. So it could be something beneficial if the town council would like us to move in that direction.
And it might make it a little lighter. You brought up my last question, which was about the Brown Act and Rosenberg. Since I've been serving for 3 years now, I'm still wondering, are we under the Brown Act, or are we under Rosenberg, or are we under both, or are we just under a rock?
Our town attorney has that answer for you.
I can assure you we're not under a rock. We are operating under the Brown Act as required by law. Typically, councils and commissions operate. The Brown Act doesn't govern certain types of parliamentary procedures, though. So it doesn't cover everything. It covers a lot of ground, but doesn't cover parliamentary procedures. So
Brown Act does not.
correct. So typically, councils decide whether they want to follow Rosenberg's rules of parliamentary procedure or Robert's rules of parliamentary procedure. And if you've ever looked at Robert's rules, it's like the first slide on Patty's slide deck. They're lots of details, lots of pages. So I'd say most councils and commissions these days follow Rosenberg's rules of parliamentary procedure, like 5 or 6 pages long. And I would say if that is something that the council wants to specify in here, you don't have to actually copy and paste them, but they are a standalone document that you can easily Google.
Yeah, totally. Just make it clear what document to look at, because I've read Brown's
So
3
Mary,
times.
stay on questions. We'll come back to discussion.
I was done.
Great,
Right.
thank you. No problem. It seemed like you were starting to make a comment about what we
Just-
should do. So I was just, no, that's good. Thank you. They were great questions. Rebecca?
So the current document says that volunteers for the Planning Commission, Architectural Site Control Commission are required to live in the town of Portola Valley, and no applications from residents of lands in the sphere of influence shall be considered. So my question is, I know that people who work on the Planning Commission, that membership is defined by the state. Because the Architectural Site Control Commission, in my understanding, is a purely Portola Valley entity. Is there something in our municipal code about the requirements for the Architectural Site Control Commission?
I will have to double check that. I don't have that. I can look right now to see if that is something that's out of our muni code for the residency requirement.
And then we talk a lot about the residency, so I'm just wondering a little bit about if we are planning to make any kind of distinction between a residency, someone who actually lives in town, who votes in town, versus someone who owns property in town, and their eligibility to serve on any committee, or even a commission, but particularly a committee, if they own property in town, does that give them any time? Should we be considering that in terms of distinction?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, she's that
Or is that a
question.
comment? So yes, this came up in the discussion and I guess I'll speak up because I had the strongest opinion on it. Having gone through this before in different cities where maybe someone was actually appointed to the planning commission, then removed after they were appointed. But one option, you have options here for committees, as you stated, that aren't necessarily governed by state law. And one thing that some cities use is the same requirements for voter registration. So we would point to that. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a registered voter. That's a personal choice, but it's essentially the same criteria and it's referenced in the staff report. It's in the voter code and essentially means it's your primary domicile. You could also use where you file your taxes, but I'm not sure honestly in this town. I know people maybe get creative about that, but maybe less creative about where they choose to enroll for voting purpose. And I think probably that gets to the testament of where you have your, I guess, your civic home base, if you will. I will say it's been undefined right now, right? And we have run into issues, which we haven't brought to you independently, but we are aware of the history that has come up. And it would help. This is an area where it may not be a legal thing, but it would certainly help the administration of this handbook especially for Veronica, to have that clarity.
Okay, so within the text, it also talks about advisory and support role, and it distinguishes between those two, and I'm unclear kind of on the difference sort of between those two, because then we refer to the committees as advisory only. I was a little confused about that, so maybe you could clarify why we have that distinction of two, given that it seems that the committees are a mix of both of those roles.
And it was advisory versus, I'm sorry, the other.
Support.
Support. Oh.
Well, and this one thing we struggled with is that the handbook as it's written now was done before the split in committee types, right? But in conferring with Catherine, and she can weigh in, one of the things that's very important to keep the town manager committees and not subject to the Brown Act is to ensure that they're, I'll say, governed or oversight by the town manager and no town council oversight. And so in theory, what will likely happen with this committee handbook is that it only applies to the town council Brown Act committees. Now you might ask, oh, where's the guidance from the town for the town manager committees? That is, again, something we just realized, yes, once this committee handbook is cleaned up, we would need to work on.
Do you anticipate there to be a lot of differences then?
Probably only around the things that have come up and relative to what is the town council's involvement. So committee appointments, proving the roster. You might have noticed on the agenda tonight, there was a little bit different language. You accepted the town manager committee rosters, whereas you approved the other rosters. And so there's a distinction.
And then Mary had brought up just before when we voted on the rosters that the historical committee is really actually a working group. So I'm confused about that because I don't think there's any talk about working groups in this document. So will they fall under the committee? Will they become a town manager? I'm a little confused about.
So I think it was 2024 that there was the big change and they were changed to a working group. And so they're essentially not a committee, not really anything other than a group that gets together and we try to support. I do meet with Nancy Lund and her committee members if they have a question.
Do they have a
But
budget?
there's, no, they do not have a budget. I think, they do.
I believe have a budget if either between
Oh.
$1,000 to $1,500, I believe is their rough budget.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I do know that they needed a computer.
In the matrix that we put together when we split manager versus council, the working groups had the same criteria as the town manager committees. It was really around meeting frequency. They're not required to meet, smaller things like that.
Okay. And I guess my last question is kind of on the next steps. How do you envision actually the work being completed? Is the working group, it was a working group, right? Going to be recreated to do the work, or is it staff's going to be doing the work? I mean, how do you envision kind of moving forward with whatever comments we provide?
So looking for council direction and how they would like us to proceed, but the current staff conversation and plan would be we would work with the working group on the edits that they've provided to us. If there was any other feedback we received this evening, we'd obviously add that and can add that to our list of items as well, but obviously with discussion with the working group and appreciation for the work that they've done so far on the committee commission handbook updates, and then bringing that back. Staff would bring it back to town council potentially. If Patty would like to join me up here again, she's more than welcome to. But we could proceed however the council would.
Are you done, Rebecca? Great, thank you. Helen said she had one more question.
I
Go ahead.
did. Because of the confusion around the Council Brown Act committees and the town manager committees, has there been any thought that, it sounded like, but I just want to clarify that it sounds like they'll be split into two handbooks now, right?
Yes, that is the thought.
Okay, just making sure I got that right. Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a couple of quick questions. Subsidiary bodies, could you explain that concept?
So this is a fairly new term that is from SB 707, which just went into effect on January 1st of this year. And these bodies are defined as bodies that are non-decision making, so only advisory. And those bodies are, for the purposes of this SB 707 and the special teleconferencing rules, if the council were to authorize it, could use teleconferencing with much greater flexibility than as currently allowed. For example, they wouldn't need to do what Judith is doing with posting the agenda and going through that script. There could be, there wouldn't necessarily need to be a quorum of council members here in person. So greater teleconferencing flexibility would be allowed, but only for subsidiary bodies, so advisory ones, and only if authorized by council.
Okay, and so we do have some committees that are actually written into our municipal code for making decisions. So they couldn't be subsidiary because they're making
Correct.
decisions, right?
Yes.
So we'd end up having to bifurcate even among the council, town council subcommittees between those that are in the code and those that are strictly advisory.
I will look at it a little bit more, but I believe the only ones that are decision-making would be Planning Commission and ASCC.
I believe if you look in the code, I think conservation has something about, tree removal.
Okay.
You have to get
Finance,
permission.
finance.
I think finance is advisory. I'm not sure that but you might be right. I don't know. We could check, but I do think this
Yeah.
is worth looking at.
Yeah.
Because I think if we come back and I'd like to understand, are we creating a subdivision within the town council subcommittees as well as between town council and town manager?
Right.
So that would be good to understand. So, okay, that's all I have for now. Let me open it to public comment and then we'll come back and we'll have a discussion. So with that, Karen Vatra, you've had your hand up.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Contrary to most people, I actually read the handbook several times just to get some clarification over the years. And so I really appreciate having that. I also wanted to clarify something that I haven't heard yet, that the Planning Commission is currently working on bylaws and a set of documents, and there's a subcommittee for that, which I am not a member of. I'm just speaking to the fact that we're doing that here tonight. And that's Linda Brothers and Doug Morse are working on that. And we had a whole meeting about it, and they're coming up with a next new version of it. And there's probably some overlap with that. And my just general comment really is that it sounds like there are so many different types of groups that maybe this needs to be some sort of a hierarchical document with pointers, and the different documents would each have pointers to the ethics policy and things like that. And then for the commissions and perhaps the Conservation Committee, because we have judicial power to actually make a decision, we would be in one bucket perhaps. And some of these other groups would be in different buckets, but we do have a lot in common, so they could be pointers. So I kind of want to bring it to even a bigger level, that I think we need to incorporate all of these things in one place where you can easily go find what you need to know. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment? See no other, MJ Lee. Go ahead, please.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, I just wanted to agree with Karen that it seems to me to have one document and then there's sections in it for the different types of groups. It would make more sense because look at it in terms of if you are someone on multiple committees, then you would end up having to go to three different handbooks possibly, right? So committee handbooks. So I would prefer to see one document. I actually went through my computer to see how far back my committee handbook went, and I saw multiple versions back through 2012, and they were always around 30 pages. And I think 30 pages isn't that bad, as long as it's easy to find what you want. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, MJ. Christy, you're up next.
Yes, I was just wondering if we could post the openings in the almanac, as I see other towns posting theirs in the newspapers as well. And I do agree that PV Forum should be used. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Is there any other public comment? All right, going once, going twice. All right, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the council. So Judith, why don't we start with you?
Okay. All right. So just going through.
And actually, Judith, can I interrupt just for a sec? Let me frame this so we can all sort of work in a framework. I didn't mean to. I mean, you may have been about to frame it for me, but I'd like to suggest, I think, why don't we start with Patty's list, because it's sort of the most sort of broad stuff. And see if we can sort of answer some questions on Patty's general working group questions, and then move on to the more specific staff recommendations, which are more, sort of legal updates that we need to do to make ourselves compliant.
So Craig, do you want all of us to comment on the committee handbook questions that are flashed up now? Go through that and then come back and
let's try. I mean, I'd like to try that and see if we can make that work. And then if it just devolves, then so be it. But let's try to just stay with these high level objectives and the questions that Patty's answering. And then I'll come back to everybody in the same order to go through the more detailed staff questions.
That's fine, but there's a third bucket, which is I did want to weigh in on how I would approach some of the things I had a question about, which were 4 or 5 things. So happy to do it this way.
Where do you think it would that fit after the first 2?
Yeah, that would be fine. The first 2 sets of questions and then miscellaneous. Because mine are more granular, but since I saw the language and want to request that certain things be clarified, that I have that category. So let's go through this one on the screen right now. I think having a clear handbook is going to be very helpful. So yes, I think organization of it can be improved, clarification, whether it's one for the town council committees, as I'll call them, and a separate one for the other. I don't know that it matters, except from a pragmatist, and I'd rather have one of those documents done earlier, so at least X number of committees, whichever way they go first, can have some clearer rules. So I wouldn't hold up to add in. I would try and get one over the finish line. Presumably the second one can either be a second chapter for that, or maybe it's a separate book. I would defer to staff in the working group on 1 or 2 documents. I'm not bothered by the length, but I'm a lawyer, so I'll defer to others there. But I do think simple and clear should be the overriding look and feel of it. I don't know that you need to repeat the Brown Act or that you have to repeat the rules. What I would suggest, though, is if you are saying you must work under these rules of order, that you have a link or you cut and paste it in, because people may or may not follow up or might not catch that there's a link. So if you're going to streamline it that much, you really have to make it accessible through some easy to click means to access those types of rules. Reference certain lengthier and more in depth. I think that's kind of the same thing. I think I do want enough clarity and detail so that I know if somebody's applying for the ASCC that they can or can't be eligible before they come in and interview, because we did have that one situation where the ASCC potential member came in, waited all day, and then found out that she wasn't eligible because she didn't meet the criteria for the commission, whereas we could have waived the criteria if it had been a committee. So I think those types of discrepancies should be thought through and handled, so we have clear rules about who can weigh in and what their role are, and then address the more common situations that may arise. That seems at odds with keeping it simple and short. So I think I defer to the working group. I think getting something that's easy to use sooner is the objective. And this year, we have a lot going on, so I would not want to overcomplicate it. So I'll stop there, let others comment on the high level objectives.
Thank you. And Patty, is this the level of feedback that your working group needs? And is there anything besides this slide? Is there anything else that you want us to opine on?
No, we can work with this. I mean,
Okay.
I think it'll be an iterative process to an certain extent, probably between the staff and the working group as we get your feedback.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to make sure that we're, sort of focusing our efforts on stuff that's be helpful to you. Okay. So Rebecca, would you like to?
It's hard to answer all.
I understand. And we're assuming you're going to work with staff. This is just what we can give you tonight. Yeah.
I agree with the idea of sort of simplifying some of the stuff, taking out some of the specifics like the actual charters of individual committees. I agree that it should be one document with different sections for the different commissions, committees, working groups. I do think there should be a distinction between the groups that have judicial power versus the ones that don't. And then obviously we have a distinction with Brown Act committees versus non-Brown Act. I think it's okay to link to more meatier details like the rules and the Brown Act. However, from my pretty much 1 year of being a liaison to a number of committees, I really feel that many of our committees are not really familiar with the nitty-gritty of the Brown Act. And I think it would be helpful to, not necessarily within the document, though maybe it should go in there, to have examples of behaviors or activities that actually violate the Brown Act so that people know what a sequential Brown Act violation is and what a hub and spoke violation is. I think people really do not understand that. I think it's important to have the details about what needs to go into agendas and when they need to be provided. The reality is the chairs of the committees have a much greater responsibility than the other members do in terms of running the meetings, in terms of preparing the agendas, in terms of sticking to the schedules, in terms of working on the calendars. So they may need kind of scripts. I really think it would be really helpful to have a simple script of the Rosenberg rules so that you know when you're supposed to ask for public comment, when you're supposed to do the next step. And just, it's not a long thing, but it's just a few bullet points, because I think that's important for people to know. And most people do not know that stuff, and nobody wants to read a book to understand it. So a simple script for the chairs would be really helpful. I agree that the calendar I think it makes a lot of sense for the calendar to match the town council and the town calendar in terms of the work, in terms of the planning for the budget, priority setting, and that sort of thing. I did note that some of the changes to the calendar are a little out of order, and then the new changes in the calendar don't really match a lot of the text. So we kind of have to make sure as you clean up the calendar that the rest of the text kind of matches what the final version should be. I guess that's my, I guess the other question is a policy question, and it doesn't really go for this, but the question of, should we be thinking a little bit about merging some committees? But that's not on the agenda for today, but just something to kind of think in the back of the head. And then I guess my other question is, I have a bunch of, when I went through the whole document, I made notes. So the question is, do I just hand them over, or how would you want to handle that? They're very, small things that.
You're welcome to send the edits to staff. We're happy to look at that.
Okay, thanks.
Is that it? Great, thank you. Mary?
Could I just ask a clarifying question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Rebecca, back when I think we did the switch, we had some Brown Act training. I mean, actual physical training. Would that be more helpful than put it in a document or do both?
I think, I'm not sure about the rules, but is everybody required everybody who's on a committee required to go through the Drown Act training?
I believe it was done, it wasn't required. It was strongly encouraged. It wasn't like a legal requirement, but there was a strong recommendation to do the training. Because the thing is, I would say you can put examples in a handbook, but then the actual training, really way for it to kind of stick and folks can ask their questions. Everyone can hear the answers. It can be a really effective way of training folks in the nuts and bolts of the Brown Act.
I guess I find that having gone through the training, it's helpful, but it is quite a huge chunk of time and it is somewhat tedious. And I came out of it with questions, I guess, and I had ideas for examples that would be more relevant to our committees. And I think there's just some small things that so many of the committees constantly do. And we need to think about that as a town in terms of what alternatives do they have to get feedback, to put out documents to be edited, all sorts of things where the Brown Act makes it very difficult to accomplish efficient work. We need to provide them with the steps for how they accomplish that. So I think it's easier just to have a one pager with, if you need to send out a document for review, you need to do it this way. It be in the agenda, whatever it is. But I think for a few of these items that are that I find frequently continue to occur, I think we need to address those specifically. So.
Mary?
Well, it's a very big topic. The high-level objectives that you've given us, Patty, they're great. Thank you. Clarity is the most important thing, and the only thing that makes it a doable job. If you have consistent rules that you're working with and can feel safe doing your job. We talk about safe spaces. Well, it's not safe if you're feeling like people are telling you you're doing something wrong all the time. And so you don't work well. I would like to see that emphasized in a document, that we're trying to make a positive and creative space in which you can give service to your community. So, which is really different from what we've been, and no criticism intended. Well, that may be quite completely true. I just think making sure that it's positive and making sure that people, if you do this, you're okay. You can actually produce a document that can be put on the forum or put on a letter or pushed by the town or whatever it is. This is safe, and go ahead and do it. And that should be something that we can offer from this document. I think my notes include things like, could we use a lawyer on our group, on our working group? It's not maybe our prerogative to, but we might have more consistency if we had a lawyer, and have it a little easier to roll it out once it happens. So some of the hard work might get done before we have to vote on it, before the discussion. It would be a more consistent document, more palatable by the community, perhaps. And it says here on my notes, too many types of groups, and then Karen Batra's comments made me think, well, just many types of groups. Maybe it's okay to have many different types of groups, but for my feeling would be, when you're going to move from one committee to the other, and people like to move from, you want to have some sense of what this group is and how it's similar and how it's not. So just clarifying that is going to help an awful lot. So clear and reasonable rules, that's be great for me. The rules of behavior, I think the code of conduct should be referenced. It doesn't have to be there. It just needs to, everybody, we were talking earlier about how we make civility happen in in the world, shall we say? And when it starts at home, and it starts with, that can be sort of somewhat of a principle. Make it positive, make it fair, make it clear, and don't make it frustrating. Because there are all kinds of different people. Some people love to do these, have these rules, and some people have to fight against these rules, and some people, so that you have all different, but at least you know what they are. That's all I ask for. So my only other thought was that the Brown Act is a moving target. It changes every year, I think. It's not for the layman. We need to know what we can do as regular old people that's safe. Somebody's not going to turn around and say you're misbehaving, or you can't be in that meeting, or you shouldn't be saying this, or something that makes you feel targeted. The other thing, I guess the other point of that is, well, if the Brown Act is a living document, so too is probably this committee handbook, okay? So we have to be forgiving about this and get feedback and it should be in a format that people can give you feedback and say, this is fair, this isn't fair. I want to have somebody from Woodside be on my committee. Why can't I do that? Is, just so that they can test it out. Interactive, I guess, is one of the things that can make a document more alive. Simple script charter, I'm not sure. Oh, I guess the point I've been making lately is that because calendars are, we all live and breathe by holidays and calendars and events, really important that the committees have a true sense of their calendar. In January, you will appoint your officers, you will look at your charter, you will decide whether you want to be, I know this is controversial, but one of the things that I think would be a good idea is that they are able to look at what the difference between a Brown Act and a non-Brown Act, what a working group, what those things are all about, and decide, well, this is not working for us as race and equity. Maybe it needs to have a more direct relationship with somebody, who nurtures them. They need to, and if they're going to continue to be a committee, they should be required, I think, in that January moment to say who their officers are, what they're going to be doing, that they believe in their charter. They don't have to swear by the Constitution of the state of California and the United States, but they have to know what their charter is. I don't think I've ever known what any of the charters were of any of the, shouldn't be confessing these things, but yes, they should be able to, there should sort of be a formula. Doesn't have to be a swearing in, but it should be some sort of a formula. And it's wonderful to see the committees that are nurtured in that way flourish, and the ones that aren't nurtured in that way die. So, and that's up to the community to offer the rules and make that happen. I think those are my comments on a high level.
Thank you, Mary. Ellen?
So thank you for what you guys are doing. I have to agree. I feel like our handbook right now is, unwieldy. That's how you pronounce it. And it needs a gut and an amend to make it cleaner and easier to access. So, the franchise agreement are the agreements that the town uses. So the word franchise that people don't always recognize that they're not talking about a McDonald's, right? They're talking about like our green waste agreement with our waste and sewer kind of idea. So, but you're right. Like, do we need to talk about that in the handbook? I'm not sure. Unless you can explain it further. but it's a little bit too opaque, you know, it's not clear. So I agree. In terms of, can I see the next slide? Actually, there was another question that I wanted to, I think it was the next slide. Maybe not. Right, like, that can grant franchises. We're not talking about McDonald's, we're talking about waste services. You know, in terms of does it need to contain the conservation, like, it doesn't need about like removal of invasive plants, probably not, but I do think it needs to have like what the conservation committee does, right? Versus sustainability versus trails, for instance, right? Like that the conservation committee does have jurisdiction over heritage trees situation, right? The 3 species of heritage trees that are covered, right? Like people don't understand what the conservation committee's charter is, exactly what Mary was saying always, right? And so I think for each committee, what is its purpose? Why do we have it? What is its goal, right? In terms of Rosenberg's law of order, oftentimes it's once people get in and if they become a chair, they need to know what the law of order, or if like, when do they get to ask questions, or, you know, how do they have discussions? So I think that would be good to have as an appendix potentially, right? And I, you know, Brown Act, I would actually have, when they're given the handbook, that they have to read the Brown Act and return, like sign something in it to say that, like, acknowledge that they've read it. The Brown, right?
The entire Brown Act.
It's, well, but it's like a 1-page, right? Right. Do we have that right now? Yeah. So, because I do, you know, it's like you have read this and acknowledge and return it kind of thing. So a gut and amend to make it cleaner, easier to access would be my recommendations. And jumping ahead, do you want me to jump ahead to the answer the staff questions yet? No, you want me to wait?
A single document.
Agnostic. You know, I might do, I think it's very confusing for people to understand the differences, but because we have so many volunteers who are on different committees, you know, variety of committees, the same people. One document would probably be easier, but I think it's very confusing for people to understand what our committee structure is, right? And so maybe having some sort of org chart with like why we have different types of committees, a simple org chart like these, you know, Planning Commission, ASCC, Conservation Committee, maybe Finance, we're not sure, has jurisdictional, has not just advisory, like have that at the top, and then maybe have it divided into like pages 1 through 10. Are those maybe 10 through 20 are for these second committee? So maybe one document, just that it is very confusing for people to understand. Other questions? Have I forgotten anything? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So at the highest level.
Sorry, that was, I temporarily unmuted by putting on my computer. Thank you. Apologies. So I definitely agree that I think we want to simplify it. So I think that's the right direction to go. I think you want to do more by reference, but I would caution you, I think you want to do by reference with some highlights of the important things that the link is pointing to, so that people have an idea of what is in that link. And, you know, usually, you know, I think we could pick any of these. We could put, you know, Rosenberg, we could pick the Brown Act. There's a bunch of these things where, you know, pretty much you could say, look, I mean, this is what it's about. And here's a couple of things you need to know, but the details are over here. So to your point earlier, you know, the simple case, I think you could put that as part of the highlight, whereas all the corner cases, you know, reference that in a separate document would be my recommendation. I think these should be separate documents. I think that the town manager and the working group kind of has to be, because if we dictate it, then it's sort of being dictated by the town council anyway, which we can't do. So I would think that that's a separate one. And I think the commissions we hold to a higher standard, because they really are making decisions. I mean, and much more than conservation, which makes, a small number of decisions every year. The Planning Commission, ASCC, are making significant decisions all the time. So I would put them in their own group. And given that at least Planning Commission is working on their charter and bylaws, that may be the basis for, their handbook, if you will. So that would be my recommendation. So that leaves us with the town council committees. And I think that's the first one we should work on, because that's the one that I think is critical to keeping us, in the Brown Act. I mean, the whole reason for putting a bunch of stuff under the town manager was so we didn't get out of, compliance. But town council ones, those are the ones we need to make sure that we're in compliance. So I would recommend that we have 3 with an intro, I think was mentioned, sort of saying, here are the different ones we have, kind of here's why. And it could be, literally a sentence or 2 of what the difference between being on a commission versus being on a town council committee versus being in a town manager committee. But just so people have a sense. But there are differences, and people should, if they're on different kinds of committees, they need to understand those differences. The working group, that obviously needs to just be working with the town manager. I mean, that's pretty clear to me. And my at least going in recommendation is for the subsidiary bodies that we just don't do that we just assume that there are none, so that we don't end up having to have 2 different kinds of town council committees. And then if we find that we really need that extra flexibility, then we could come back and revisit this. But I would say for now, let's not add that extra complexity.
No, say that again, no subsidiary committees. Is that what you just said?
Right. Yeah. So I think that's what I have. Can you go back one slide? Let me just make sure I covered. So clarifying, reorganizing. Yes. So obviously current practices, that's the whole goal of this process. I definitely think you could make it simpler and lighter. But again, I just want to emphasize, let's make sure you highlight when you reference off to something else. Give them a little bit of context of what's there. And then the last thing I have is, I think for the chair and the vice chair, we should have Brown Act. And at the same time, we could do, Rosenberg as well. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, it can be something Catherine does, and it can be a half-hour thing. But I agree. I think it's really important that people get together and ask those questions, because it's usually like, oh, well, can we do this on our committee? And trying to extract that from the Brown Act is a hard analysis. I mean, unless you're familiar with it, it's really hard to figure some of that stuff out. So I would recommend that we institutionalize for the chair and the vice chair. I don't think every committee member needs, but the chair and the vice chair do, because they're going to run the meeting and they need to run it correctly. And this is for the town council meetings, and obviously for the commissions, it's the same thing. So I think that's all I have for your level of kind of high level objectives. Do you have any other questions for us before we get drop down into the next one?
Can I just comment on that? One of the problems I see in these committees is nobody wants to be chair, and that's part of the reason, is that all of a sudden it's a whole lot more frightening. You have to sit with the attorney and be told what to do, and
But then don't
be
town council committees. I mean, these are the things that legally they have to do. And if they don't do it, the problem is they're going to be in trouble. So we want to protect them by giving them the tools. So I think it's important that we give them the tools. I think saying, oh,
there are ways of doing it that maybe are less threatening than having to be in front of the attorney. Spoken like a doctor.
Sure. And I think all I said was Brown Act training. You're right. Whether Catherine has to do it, I find Catherine very friendly. And
I love Catherine.
But that was not one of my requirements. So I'll retract that part of the comment and just
there's really funny things that you do that they make funny, doing weird things. And
I hear you. So, but I think getting some Brown Act training, whether it's the one pager or other stuff, I mean, doesn't really matter to me. But I think that chair and vice chair need to get that training. We just want to make sure they understand. And my experience is most chairs, once they get it, they're like, okay, that's not that complicated, but thank you for telling me so that I know what's going on. Okay, so going back to closure on this. So Patty, you got what you need to work with your working group and staff? Great. Well, thank you very much. I think we can collectively apologize for the fact that this has dragged on for 3.5 years. But, as you know, we've had changes in town managers, et cetera. So thank you for your persistence. And I'm really hoping that we can wrap this up this year and, get it done. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results.
Rather working.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Judith.
Are you winding down the whole topic?
Just
or
high
are
level
you?
objectives, just high level
Okay, thank
objectives,
you.
which is
Yeah.
Patty. And then
Cheers.
I'm going to move on to Corey and the details. And then I'm going
Okay.
to move on to miscellaneous. I've got
Yeah.
them for you. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Cool.
no problem. Yeah. Okay. So with that, you're welcome to stay, Patty, or if you want to, it's getting late, if you want to go home. So stay. Yeah, please do. That'd be great. So then Corey, do you want to go back and bring up your list? Yeah, no problem. And then Judith, we'll just do the same order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. I want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. I have additional topics for council consideration in front of me. I know it's not projected up.
She's going to bring the slide up and just.
She is. Okay.
Yeah, she's working on it. Okay, we got sharing the screen. There we go. Is this a 1-page or 2-page? Remind me.
So the additional topics for council consideration is just one.
Okay, great. And so this is what you'd like us to opine on?
Yes, this,
Yeah.
or if you have any feedback related to the other edits.
Mhm.
It's on everything that was shared already, but if there were, I'm happy to bring up those slides as well.
Okay, and certainly you're open to just getting, comments from council members as you guys, staff works through the sets of issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Okay. So Judith, with
Yeah.
this additional topics for councils, go ahead.
Yep. I'll just start at the top. I think rolling applications, to me, it makes sense. Unless it's extremely burdensome for the staff. And even if it is, I think having a gap when an opening occurs of too long can hinder a particular committee or commission. So I don't know about identifying a specific recruitment period because that seems to imply you must hold an opening vacant until that time of year rolls around. And I don't think that's going to help us function. Appeals process for removed members. I think, I don't recall the history behind when this got added. I think it's a little odd to have, I'll just be blunt, it's odd to have the mayor be able to remove somebody in and of itself. If staff tells me or the town attorney tells me that's the normal process, then that's fine. If that is the case, it does make sense to have an appeal, but I'm not sure it's practically really going to be used very much. So I guess I'd like if I could just ask a quick question of staff and the town attorney. What do other jurisdictions do on this? Is there a rule?
Can you give me a moment on that one? I can get back to you.
Yeah, I'll keep going.
Yeah.
Residency requirements. Well, we have run into this before. I think I want a pretty strong tie to the town to have somebody having impact on our town policies. I think having them domiciled here, living here, makes sense. If they own property here, but they're not yet living here, that was the case. I've seen that happen with the ASCC candidate. And that is really hard because in that circumstance, the person just wanted to be living in the house that just wasn't built yet, but they own the property. That is a different situation for me than somebody coming in and like updating a house and flipping it. Like that's what I don't think is healthy for us. And how often is this going to come up? I don't think it's going to come up all that often. I think I'd be fine saying it has to be a domicile, um, or primary residence, whatever the legal language ends up being. But I do think the town should be able to, or the town council should be able to waive it depending on the facts and circumstances if there's something that falls outside of that, but still is pretty close to having a large stake in the town, like owning a business here. Maybe. I'm not sure. So I'd be open to clarifying it so people know whether they are or aren't eligible. But I do think I want to be wary of people who are purchasing a property not with a long-term interest, whatever that means, from influencing us. The code of conduct, if all of that prior conversation is right, and I have no doubt it is, it makes sense to have the code of ethics apply. I would just have a second look at it to refresh myself on whether there's something that doesn't make sense. But now that the others on the council have reminded me, I think that that's fine. So I'll turn it back. I don't know if the appeals process question is answered yet.
Okay, well, we'll do one more round after this and we can sweep anything else that's left. Ellen?
Well, that was
I'm
was
sorry.
it Catherine, or I don't know who said they wanted to get back. I wasn't sure whether they were saying
Catherine
tonight.
did, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was able to find a couple other planning commission. I looked at for planning commission bylaws that
Yep.
I'm familiar with, and they the few examples that I did find require that the full council actually vote to remove a member.
Yeah. See that I would vote for that. I think it's a big enough issue and it's concerning enough that I tend to think that's the right outcome, but that's a legitimate policy point that we should discuss. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ellen? I don't know which way did I go? Sorry, yeah, I thought I went Helen and then Rebecca and then Mary, but
Yeah, it sounds
whatever.
good.
Helen, why
Okay.
don't you go next?
Great, okay. In terms of filling of vacancies, I actually like the idea of doing it once a year or twice a year, maybe like once in June and once in January kind of idea. I feel like people aren't, the vacancies are coming up all of the time and not, people aren't paying attention because they're all of the time instead of having
The campaign.
a campaign like, hey, this is recruitment season. This is when we get to fill our committee rosters. Please apply. Because right now what I'm seeing is like word of mouth, like, hey, someone heard, instead of seeing notifications. So I actually do want it to be at, a set time of year or twice a year or something. And then update committee calendar to reflect dates. I know that's not up on the, I definitely think it should follow the town calendar, the town council calendar. In terms of appeals process, it should be full town council. Residency, I did, when I was on the Parks and Rec Commission in Mountain View, we had problems with people who own property in town who but did not live there, and they wanted a say, and I get that. So it's very I want people to have skin in the game. So I do want people to have some sort of whether they live in town or work in town, to have, I would appreciate to have folks who work in town have sometimes seats if we have those opportunities too. If they want to have some say on a committee. Code of conduct, absolutely want the committee members to follow the code of conduct. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Um, In terms of vacancies, given that we do have committees that need to fill vacancies, and we definitely have fewer volunteers than we did before, and we have many people that work on many committees because we need more, but I don't want to put any roadblocks for people to join a committee where there's vacancies. However, I do agree that I think we should do a big splash at least once a year, maybe twice, to just send out and recruit and let people know what the vacancies are and let people know what committees, what they do and whatnot, and encourage people to come. And it probably we should look at the calendar to see, I guess, December is when we're confirming the rosters. So maybe a little in November, we should be doing it, or maybe even October, November time period, we should be doing a big splash or something just to get people to consider joining the committees. Perhaps too. Yeah, that might be a good time too. So people have a chance to kind of go to a few of the meetings and see if it's the right fit. But I don't want to prevent people from joining any time of the year when we have vacancies that need filling. Let's see. Maybe it makes, I mean, I think the application's fine. It's a one pager, right? It's not too difficult to apply for. It seems reasonable to me, the one that we have, the online one. I don't know if you need to put that information into maybe the link to it should be in the book or the handbook or an easy to use link, just so that people know where to find that, perhaps. I don't know. Appeals process for removed members. I think the full town council should probably be involved. Whether they should be involved for the removal of someone, I would have to think a little bit more about that. I mean, if the full council's making the determination, it becomes a completely public meeting. So whatever dirty laundry there is becomes 100% public. And I'm a little concerned about that. So I think we really need to think about that. Residency requirements, I've kind of brought up some points about that. I think there's a big difference between the Planning Commission, which has got rules defined by the state, versus the ASCC and the committees. They're very different animals. So in terms of residency, I think it's up to the town council to make that determination of what we want for everything except the Planning Commission. I don't think we have a choice for that one. For the ASCC, for example, given that we had someone that owned property and was actively building and served on some of our other committees, in that case, it seems like in a case by case, the town council should have been allowed to okay that person. But yes, I agree with Judith in terms of, if we just have a real estate agent flipping stuff, that may not make sense, who doesn't live in town, it wouldn't make sense to me to give them the ability to serve on a committee. Code of conduct, yes, it should be updated with the actual language. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Mary?
Okay, I'll try. You make a convincing case for doing it twice a year. It occurred to me that it should be during the election cycle, that you should actually be able to say in October, November, I want to be on the bicycle, pedestrian and traffic, and that by November, December, you would be working hard to convince the chair that you wanted to be there. And then by January, you'd be in place. And that would give people a chance to read the handbook and to figure out whether this was something they were interested in, instead of just being their arm twisted into, okay, fill out the form. Just go fill out the form. which is what usually happens. So and if we could do it in a sort of a upbeat, this is an opportunity to participate in your democracy, it could be fulfilling. So I'm tending to think that a year commitment is not too much for people to think ahead. It takes a lot of time to do these jobs. You might as well have thought about it and start thinking about it and be ready to roll and campaign and be educated and ready to do it. So that may be a minority position, and I understand the other part of it. I feel super strongly about number 2, having lived through this. The mayor should not have authority to remove the chair or a commissioner single-handedly. The council, that person should have the right to a audience. It was referred to me as an inquisition. And in fact, it's not an inquisition, it's an opportunity to talk, to give your case, to give your situation, and to have, there be a component of truth to what was going on. So I feel super strongly about number 2, and I think it needs to be clarified. Number 3, the residency requirement, my feeling about it is that Portola Valley and Woodside are like so closely related. How does this work with Woodside people who want to be, like across the street here? This is Woodside. If that person over there wants to serve on one of our committees so they can walk to their job, are they in the PV school district? I don't know how that works. I don't even know that. Yeah, so maybe we've gotten around that. And like our new geologist is serving on both committees, the Woodside and Portola Valley.
So right now there is a provision in the handbook for committee members, not commission, that they can be appointed if the chair recommends the appointment with the concurrence of the mayor and the full council, and they have to live within the sphere of influence and have be in the school district boundaries. That's not all of Woodside though. Some are in a different school district. It's a case by case.
Ooh, confusing.
So like
Okay.
Los Trincos and like Old La Honda,
Those
are-
are sphere of influence.
those are in the school district boundaries up to Skyline, all the
Right.
way, actually on the other side of Skyline is the school district boundaries but not all of La Honda, but some of it is.
It's a little confusing. And we're not surprised that residents get a little confused about whether they can apply or not. I wish there was a simpler way of doing it. I'm not sure how to answer this question. At any rate, code of conduct, I think it's it's easy. We do it. Everybody wants to do it. It should be not seen as a threat.
Do you have other stuff?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we should have a rolling process, but I would like to see us encourage people, if they're planning to resign, that they resign, say, in November. I think if we can try to concentrate it, I think that's great. But the idea of a committee having to wait to get members, that doesn't sound right to me. I do think that we need to have an open process that's well-defined. I would say at least a month of, and we advertise it. I would also say, I think we should use PV Forum. And I'm okay if what you do is you send a reference to PV Forum saying there's an opening and all the details are back on the town website so that you can go back and edit the town website. But the idea that we're not using one of the sort of major communication tools that we have, that sounds wrong to me. So I would encourage you to find a way to sort of use PV Forum in a light way without sending all the details. So I would definitely.
Craig, can I ask you a question about
Sure.
that?
Yeah.
Are you saying it's a requirement? Because that's why I asked the question a while ago. What is the minimum notice? And I think we're defining that in one way. It's not an exclusive notice. So are you saying it must be a requirement? Because that would concern me if it's, anybody can also post. that's on the PB forum. But what we're trying to do here is say, what is the legal requirement for proper notice of an opening?
I guess I don't feel strongly. My concern is if we set the minimum, no offense, staff will do the minimum. Because they'll go, this is what we're supposed to do. They'll check the boxes and they'll move on because they think that's what they're supposed to do. So, if we write it with, this is the minimum, but we highly recommend you use these other ones, I would be okay with that without making it a sort of legal requirement. But I do feel strongly that we should use it when we can. I don't think we use it enough.
Okay, so how do we address that? Because I disagree. And we could just leave it at a disagreement with that, but I think that merits discussion because I'm coming at it from what is the town legally supposed to do? And there are some legal aspects of that directive that we ought to think through before, this is a handbook topic, so I don't think it's appropriate to finalize that piece of it tonight.
Again, and we're giving staff some direction. They're going to come back and say, wow, I heard one thing from Judith and one thing from Greg.
That's fine.
So it's
That's
still
fine.
an open question.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah,
the
that's
right.
fine. Okay.
So,
Okay, got it.
I just piggyback on that. I think there's a distinction between recruiting for the planning commission and ASCC versus the other committees in terms of how we advertise them. So there's definite legal requirements for the planning commission. And because the ASCC is similar to the planning commission, it's a little different than just asking someone to join the Woodside, the Wildfire Preparedness Committee.
Right. Yeah. So the commissions in my mind, and I'm going to get to that, are completely different. Like we interview people who are applying, the council interviews them. We don't do that for the committees. We assume the committee will do that and the chair and the mayor will talk. So I completely agree that I think the commissions are different. In terms of removal, I definitely feel if we're removing a commissioner, that needs to be the whole council. I think if we're removing a committee member, I think there should be an appeal process that you can appeal to the town council. But to say it has to come to the council and it has to be a public airing, that seems kind of harsh for committee members. There's times when it's just not working. And if they can agree, hopefully if they agree, they just resign. That's the easiest. So I would recommend we have a little softer path in there. But I definitely am fine Mary, to your point, that if you want your moment to speak, that there should be an avenue for you to appeal it to the council. Sphere of influence. My feeling is you can, if you're a legal resident of the town and basically the mayor and the chair agree, then we just put it on the consent agenda like we do. I would get rid of all the rest of it and say the rest of it is subject to council approval. And as a council member, I would look and say, are they in our sphere of influence? And I'm not talking about commissions now, I'm talking about committees, just to be clear. Commissions, I think, should be residents. But for committees, we've had people from Ladera with great conservation. Mary's making some points about people in Woodside. I think if the chair wants to make that argument, they basically make that argument to the council, and I would review that. And the things that would weigh in their favor would be they're in the sphere of influence. They lived in Oklahoma, I'd probably not vote for it. But I don't see any reason to limit it to that. I think it's just at the discretion of the council. So unless there's some legal reason that we need to define this, I think we have people on that we think are good advice. They're helpful in advising us. Let's see. So that's the residency stuff, code of conduct. Yes. And then the last one was, I definitely think quorum should be the number of people who have been appointed, not the number that are assigned to the committee itself. And that way, but it's got to Judith's earlier point. You're appointed until you resign. So the chair doesn't get to say, oh, this person doesn't come anymore. But if a person doesn't come, we do have rules in the handbook for removal. And that's where the chair and the mayor would say, look, you haven't been here for, half the meetings. It's time to move on. And if they don't respond, then I think they just get removed would be, my sense. So. So does that get you what you need for this slide, Corey?
So
Okay.
respectfully, I did
Yeah.
I had a couple more comments after hearing my colleague.
Okay, can we wrap that in the miscellaneous? We're gonna do one more sweep and it's gonna be everything else is left. So can we just,
It's specific to the slides. so
okay, go ahead.
Apologies.
No, no worries.
So after hearing about sphere of influence, I definitely support that for the committees. So,
But which are you supporting? That we do,
sphere of
or that we allow?
influence.
Okay,
Okay. In terms of language on the application, I do feel that the time commitment language is vague, committee versus commission. Committees meet monthly and require significant time, I think is an exaggeration to, so I think that needs to be considered. In terms of the appeals, I think it could go to closed session. Right? If instead of doing it an open session. So thank you. Those were my 3 comments.
May I
Thank
ask
you.
the town attorney related to the closed session?
yeah.
I'm not sure that it would qualify for a closed session.
Yeah.
And so that's, I believe, why the, handful of like planning commission bylaws that I've looked at have had removal by the town council in open session. As a practical matter, oftentimes folks resign before that, but that is, the term.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we're gonna do the final round. If you don't have anything to say, it's okay. Let's try to keep this short. I know Judith had some additional miscellaneous stuff that sort of wasn't on either of these. So I want to catch those and I'd say the same to the rest of the council members. If you have things that weren't on these 2 slides, now's the time to bring them up. And again, this is a study session. It's just getting staff a direction so they can come back with more questions to us. So Judith, with that, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Circling back, this is quick on the residency requirement. I think it's a real strong policy question that deserves more discussion on a principle. I think the sphere of influence is allowed for some committees already. If someone who is a resident is not filling the slot. But having someone from Oklahoma, for example, only be able to join a committee, I strongly think we got to think through the ramifications of that. So I wouldn't just put that in without a policy discussion. So circling back on the miscellaneous parts, I think I do want to see it clarified what the priority setting session involvement is, because I read that as you must have a session with the town council and the committee representatives. And that kind of implied that our priority setting session would work a different way. So I'd rather see it be they are involved in the process or advising on it. But that's a wording tweak, I think. The quorum, it shouldn't be the number of slots open. It should be the number of people who are members of the committee. And I guess you might need to clarify that the chair, staff, and the chair must keep a running roster of who is currently there. So you don't just, you're not random about it. So that's the missing step. I would like to see that filled somehow, but there's a lot of ways of doing that. In terms of, I have a couple different things written down. I think I've covered. Yeah. Those are the other issues. So I'm done.
Good, thank you. Helen?
In terms of the quorum, I definitely, as soon as I heard Mary sigh with relief that it was being considered, I support that idea. I want our committees to be able to meet and not have to count vacancies against them. In terms of merged committees, I realize that is not on the agenda, Craig. But I would, eventually I think we are having a hard time sometimes filling our committees, and we have some redundancies. And I also see some turf wars happening within our committees, which I don't think is beneficial to the community. So, so it might, and like the sustainability has vanished, but we have some great, conservation and we have trails, like, and why does sustainability disappear and the others are still there? So I'm concerned about that. So we might need to expand or something to, you know, absorb, have something, because sustainability should not have vanished, for instance. So thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I'd like a clarification in the document about the annual reports that the committees are supposed to present. I was just unclear whether we're talking about the fiscal year or the previous year, that, you know, the calendar year. It was really unclear to me. So if we could kind of, when we think about the activities, like, you know, what I had talked about before in terms of having a calendar that really says what each committee is supposed to be, when they're supposed to be doing something, so that they're prepared, so that they know that they have to do in whatever month, they have to have a meeting to discuss their presentation, or they have to have a meeting to discuss, you know, the dates when they have to, what each month, what they're supposed to be doing in terms of keeping track of these sort of administrative tasks in addition to their actual goals. So just so that they know that, so it doesn't come up on, you know, out of the blue, oh, I'm supposed to give a presentation next week and we're not totally unprepared. So just so that they know this in advance, so the calendar can be really specific, and then clarify what an annual report, whether it's calendar versus fiscal, that sort of thing. That's my only thing.
Thank you. Mary? Great, thank you. I'm done as well. So with that, Corey, is there anything else that you need from us?
No, that was perfect. Thank you very much.
Great. All right. So with that, I'm going to close 8A and move on to the presentation from BPTS. But I don't see Ed on anymore. So is he? He's not on my list. Oh, he's in the panelists. Great. My apologies. Okay. Great.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Thank you. Apologies that this ran on. Maybe next time we can switch around the presentations. But go ahead, Ed. Why don't you give us your presentation?
Well, thank you for recognizing the long wait. I was about to say that whilst I'm excited to share much about what BPTS has done over 2025 and plans on 2026, I'm a little despondent that the wider audience doesn't get a chance to hear this. So this is not just for me, it's just anybody else who would be interested in hearing about committee activities, like they did with the excellent presentation from Ray and Craig for EPC. They're really missing out on a chance to hear something about BPTS. So please bear that in mind for everybody's benefit.
Okay, so
all right, moving on to presentation, and I do not have any slides to present. We arranged at rather short notice to bring our presentation forward to clear the decks for all the scheduling for all the other committees. So I'll go through my highlights, and I will share this through Veronica and Darcy so that you actually get a proper copy of what I put down here. So for 2025 highlights, I will say one of our big achievements, and that's thanks to many of my other members of the committee, particularly Angela Hay and Pat Bannon. We finalized the draft of the local roadway safety plan that had been requested by CCAG. As I say, notable contributions from Angela and Pat on that. And I was pleased to see that late last year, the council adopted that and submitted the plan to CCAG. So that was really getting something pretty serious and bulky across the finish line. And again, thank you, help from our town staff, from Darcy, and particularly from Robert, our new town engineer, to finalize the draft, get the official language straight and all those things. Excellent stuff. The committee supported several major town events, particularly Zots to Tots, as a usual big highlight of the year on that sort of resident outreach. We again coordinated with the Sheriff's Department for direction of the event, and the Woodside PV CERT team were excellent assistance with that, providing coverage, communications, and additional volunteers to augment our resident volunteers to enable us to close the road safely and run the event smoothly. So again, I think that was a big success. We can always build on what we learned each time, but we've now got I think 3, 4, 5 years running of a very solid model for running that event properly. So keep that one going along. And then the third item of note is support for parking management and traffic coordination with PV Palooza. As their organization changes, I'm not sure how our role will continue, but I think we're certainly willing to consider and continue working with that organization to help their event move along. Obviously, that organization of that may change as things grow and the requirements for that event change. But we're still here if we're needed. Going on to more committee business type items, major agenda items that featured last year, particularly promotion and coordination of wildlife safety and awareness to road users. I think we're starting to really bring that to a head with some discussions we had at the Wildlife Safety Day last week, and the possibility to have a competition to design some road signs and things like that, which I think I really hope that will come to fruition with support from town. And we've got a plan to talk to town manager and Mary, I think, coming up soon. Councillor Hofty. We were successful in restarting a regular liaison with the Sheriff's Department that had waned a little in some of the controversy surrounding that organization. But I'm glad that they really put us a new liaison sergeant on that task. And the acting captain, who I know has now been promoted elsewhere, was very supportive of getting that connection restarted and kicking things back off again. So long may that continue. We're receiving regular accident and citation data, so we can get a proper picture of the type of things that unfortunately do still happen, even on our supposedly quiet and rural streets. We've spent more time understanding e-bike regulations and how that information gets shared with residents and the school district. And again, that's been in coordination with the Sheriff's Department, who've been very proactive already in that and have a program of outreach to schools. And they presented on that, I think, at our August or September meeting last year, and gave us a lot of information about what they are sharing with residents, with school kids, and with the school districts. And then the last thing we're doing, one of the things of note, was just having a subcommittee that is monitoring this progress of speed camera pilot programs that are beginning within the states. I believe there are 5 cities with speed camera pilot program. Just keeping a watch on that and looking at, if that program's likely to expand. Is that something that Portola Valley would have any interest in participating or finding out more about what it would take to participate? Moving on to 2026 priorities. I think this is in no particular order, but definitely maintain and cultivate the liaison that we have with the Sheriff's Department, getting information, finding out about events or incidents, and also being able to plan things like Zots to Tots and other events where we would like to have the Sheriff's Department support. Participation in the upcoming safety element as appropriate with regard to timing and that process. That's very important to us as a safety-facing committee. And doing what we can to support emergency evacuation route safety. I've presented and discussed about this a little with EPC, and we look to work alongside with Beneath and however we can, certainly not looking to undermine them in any way. But I'd like BPTS to determine the scope of its involvement in that process, focusing on safety on our main corridor routes. Safety for evacuation, that is, and exploring the opportunities we have to support and collaborate with EPC and any other committees as required, and what we can do to gather resident feedback on the concerns about evacuation. Because we talk a lot about what might be needed, but we don't really understand what the community is thinking about that. So I think that's very important. The interest and uptake of e-bikes is still increasing and very much expected to. So we want to understand the morphing issues surrounding safety and regulation. So continue to monitor state regulations, which may well be changing, and review the response to e-bike usage that are adopted by other communities nearby, where there are local policies and local regulations applied, in addition to what's required by the state. So I think that's an important thing to sort of understand, what fits other communities and how does that apply to what we're seeing in terms of e-bike usage and behavior. Upcoming involvement with other agencies, CGAG has approached us and is looking to present an update or give us a present on the update meeting on 6th. Given us an opportunity to learn and contribute to the county priorities for that plan. Next up with priorities is to seek direction from Town Council in execution of BPTS duties. So how do we address the safety issues brought to the committee's attention by residents? And how do we ensure collaboration with town staff, consultants, commissions and committees where there is a directive from the Town Council to investigate or negotiating an idea that the committee would like to recommend and take that to the next steps. Lastly, I mentioned this last year, some of these are a rehash of things that are ongoing, but this is to provide provide input and clear recommendation on preferred use of funds that are made available by Stanford in connection with the Portola terrace development. If you remember, that is an offer for $100,000 to assist in addressing road safety on Alpine Road. So as that comes along, I think BPTS, which had a hand in ensuring that got negotiated, would like to be involved in the decision-making process for using those funds. And lastly, this is not intended to be a surprise item, but it was adequately demonstrated by Craig Herbera in misremembering or struggling to remember our committee name. I think I would like to suggest that we hold a review of the committee name and see if there's anything that is better represents what we do and is also easier for people to remember. Anecdotally, I hear, oh yes, you're on the bike committee, you're on BPAC, BPTS, whatever it is. What does that stand for? And people don't know what we do. And so I think there is an opportunity to review that and look at it under the magnifying glass. And yeah, that's what I have for you today. So if you have any questions on any of those items, yeah, please let me know.
Great. Thank you, Ed. Okay, so what I'd like to do next, and with presentations in general, is I'd like to open it up to public comment, get any public comment, and then bring it back to the council, and then we can have a little bit more of a discussion. You can have your questions for Ed, as well as your comments, and we can just blend that together, because I think that makes a little bit more sense for these kind of presentations. So with that, I'm opening up for public comment for 8B. This is Ed's presentation from BPTS. Are there any comments? So there's nobody in the schoolhouse, and I don't see any hands online. So with that, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the council. Mary, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I just want to say what a fabulous job you do and how grateful we are. It's been amazing to watch you work with BPTS. I'm completely used to the initials. I just think it's really inspiring. So first of all, that's the thank you part. The questions part, I guess questions, would transportation committee work or transportation safety work? Or be more specific?
I think this is a sort of thing for a review, a subcommittee, and a rethink. You know, it's hard to come up with something on the spot.
I'm sure I think BPTS works pretty well. I think you've done such a really great job and coordinate. It's worked so well having you coordinating with the sheriff's department. And I personally think it's really amplified our general safety to have them coming once a month to tell us about our safety, and that you really added a tremendous amount by solidifying that relationship. So I'd say that's the number one great thing that's happened. I love the fact that you got those signs up. That was really great. The wildlife awareness speed signs are so inspiring. And using, I guess is that part of BPTS, or is that part of your sheriff's duty? Or, and should we consolidate those two committees? That'd be another, or those two activities? That'd be another
That's a
thing
good
to
question.
consider.
I made the request as BPTS chair, but it could just as easily have come from a sheriff's commissioner point of view. So yeah, I don't know if those two roles have to be separate, and if the
Right.
commissioner. Yeah, that's an interesting question we can visit.
So that may be the full extent. I should have more, but as you point, oh, and the other thing I wanted to do is apologize to you for putting you so late on the agenda for whatever role I play in that. And thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Mary. Rebecca?
I just want to echo as well. Thanks to you and the whole committee. The amount of work that went into the local roadway safety plan was just incredible. And I appreciate that you were able to get across the finish line and get it to CCAG, because they were definitely bugging me about it. And I think it will contribute quite a bit to the safety of our streets and help us hopefully with funding for some of the really problematic spots in town in the future. The only other thing I wanted to just mention, and you're probably familiar with it, but CCAG is embarking on a white paper for the e-bike regulations, along with a template for regulations. So you should be able to look at that in the next few months, is my understanding. They released an RFP or an RFQ, I guess, and they're planning to put it out by the end of the fiscal year, I believe. So that may give you a basis for recommendations for the e-bike situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Judith?
Yeah, same apologies, and same thanks for all that you guys do. I think the questions you're raising make a lot of sense. What is the scope? How can we look at the valuable input that your committee can make to all of the relevant operations in the town? It would be helpful to have a session on, here's what we've done, and here's where we as a committee think we could be more useful or haven't been used and should be used, because you've evolved over time, and I think it's time to provoke a discussion on what is the best use of the focus that you all have. These issues are going to become more important with execution of the housing element, and we are going to need to be very coordinated. We don't want to be redundant. We want to be coordinated. And what should lie within your purview? What should, you have a liaison with? Those are going to be important as we roll forward with the housing element. So really, really timely, and monitoring the evolution of e-bike use, and liabilities and concerns and all of that will be, I think, part of that, regardless of how everything else plays out. But thanks to you and the committee members, these are valuable perspectives, and you're hearing about them from a unique perspective. So just keep engaged, and let's. I would suggest we have some session in the future on helping with those definitional roles. So that's it.
Thank you, Judith. Helen?
Ed, thanks for everything. Working with you and your team has been great this past year. So I appreciate what you've done. A couple of comments. New Jersey was the first state to do all e-bike licensing, considering them all moped. So state of California is definitely looking at that, but nothing would be in place till January 1st of next year. We'll see what happens, what's proposed. I don't think it will go as far as New Jersey. I would be surprised. In terms of the speed camera pilot, unfortunately, we are the 1 year into the first of a 5-year speed camera pilot in 5 locations throughout the state. The Transportation Committee chair is refusing to expand it when there have been some other places that they've wanted to expand it, like Skyline, and the Transportation chair is refusing to expand it. It's also quite expensive. So that won't be done for, what is it, till 2030. So we'll see what happens in 2030, where we're at with that. In terms of calling it a different name, oh gosh, please, can we call it something else? I can never remember right. And you're right, people do not know what the committee does. They can't remember the title. They don't know what it does. It's a problem, I think. Going to the sheriff, yes, we lost Frank. He was promoted, and it was too bad because we finally had a sheriff personnel back with the committee. But it sounds like Frank Del Porto is handing things off well as he's been promoted, is what I'm seeing. Lastly, I would like to put in a plug. We're dealing with the Alpine Inn parking lot. We've got parking. I know I'm sorry to keep beating a dead horse. But I do think that this committee can help with our parking situations throughout the town. So I wanted to add that. So I look forward to being your liaison for the next year and working with you more. Thank you for everything that you've done, Ed.
Thank you, Ellen. You've been a great liaison for us. Thank you, Mary, as well, for your time with us and standing in occasionally. It's been good. And yeah, noted on the parking. Let's find a way to bring that up to the discussion.
Thank you, Helen. So again, thanks for the presentation, and thank you for being here tonight. I would suggest, in terms of what you guys do, you should review your charter as a committee. And if you want to revise your charter, it's a pretty straightforward process that you can write a new charter and you can bring it to the council, and the council can look at it, opine on it, and potentially approve it. So if that's the right approach, that could also potentially deal with your name change as well. So I would recommend you maybe put that into your goals for this year if you think that's the right thing to be working on. So
thank you. That's good advice.
Yeah. And EPC did that a while ago, right? That they rewrote their charter to make it more relevant to what. So I think there are times when it's appropriate. So if now's the time, then write it up and the council can look at it. So again, thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Sorry it's so late, but you hung in there, so we appreciate it. Okay, with that, I'm going to close 8B and move on to 9. Council Subcommittee, Liaison Committee, and Regional Agency reports. Are there any verbal reports that need to be made? Becca? No? Mary? No? Helen? No? Judith?
Just the Finance Committee. I didn't have time to write it up. It was
yesterday.
Yesterday. It's all a blur. No, it was a good meeting. I think Darcy covered the highlights of the substance, and it's great to see the numbers starting to solidify. George Savage is the chair one more time. So that's essentially what I wanted to convey.
Yeah, and that'll actually come to the council for approval. I think we've decided
Okay.
that if people are going to go beyond 2 years, we're going to bring it to the council and approve it there. But yes, the committee basically nominated him as the new chair. Yeah, perfect. So, okay, thank you. Okay, with that, I want to open it up to public comment. Are there any public comments on item number 9? So I see we have 4 people that have hung in there, but I see no hands raised. So with that, I'm going to close public comment and move to adjournment. I would accept a nomination or a motion for adjournment.
So move.
And I second it.
Okay, all in favor? Let's see, do we have to do? Okay, so Veronica, could you please do a roll call? Because I'm pretty much sure that Judith doesn't want to adjourn because it's like 1 o'clock in the morning in Boston.
It's 1:15.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1:50, exactly.
Oh my
So-
God.
I mean, as the chair of the committee, you have the power to just adjourn the
Well,
meeting.
that's okay. Let's just do roll call.
Okay.
We'll make it simple. I mean, I'm good.
Councilmember Walter,
Aye.
Councilmember Haskell,
Yeah, aye.
Councilmember Flynn,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hufty,
I.
Mayor Taylor.
Enthusiastic, yes. Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.